me tell you my opinion. Let me give you some advice. It ain't true in every situation, but it's wisdom from the wise. You know patience is a virtue. Yeah, you've heard it all your life. Is it time to just give it a try? It's 3 words in just 1 line. Take your time, get that ring off your finger, girl, 'cause I don't think you're ready quite yet. I'd be willing to bet. For heaven's sake, you just graduated high school, and now it's time to live a little and find yourself. I'm not right every time I open up my mouth, but I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. It shouldn't come as a surprise. I hope your 18-year-old self can resist when he looks into your eyes. He wants you to be forever. Of course he does, he's 25. Take some time to think of this advice. It's 3 words in just 1 line. Take your time, get that ring off your finger, girl, 'cause I don't think you're ready quite yet. I'd be willing to bet. For heaven's sake, you just graduated high school, and here's the time to live a little now. Find yourself. I'm not right every time I open up my mouth, but I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. I'm not right every time I open up my mouth, but I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. Right. Every time I open up my mouth, I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet, you're not ready. You're not ready yet, you're not ready yet. You're not ready, you're not ready. Let me tell you my opinion. Let me give you some advice. It ain't true in every situation, but it's wisdom from the wise. You know patience is a virtue. Yeah, you've heard it all your life. Is it time to just give it a try? It's 3 words in just 1 line. Take your time, get that ring off your finger, girl, 'cause I don't think you're ready quite yet. I'd be willing to bet, for heaven's sake, you just graduated high school, and now it's time to live a little and find yourself. I'm not right every time I open up my mouth, but I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. It shouldn't come as a surprise. I hope your 18-year-old self can resist when he looks into your eyes. He wants you to be forever. Of course he does, he's 25. Take some time to think of this advice. It's 3 words in just 1 line. Take your time, get that ring off your finger, girl, 'cause I don't think you're ready quite yet. I'd be willing to bet, for heaven's sake, you just graduated high school, and here's the time to live a little now, find yourself. I'm not right every time I open up my mouth, but I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. I'm not right every time I open up my mouth, but I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. Right every time I open up my mouth, but I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test, 'cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet, you're not ready. You're not ready yet, you're not ready yet. You're not ready, you're not ready. Let me tell you my opinion. Let me give
What's up, everybody? We are not streaming Remake tonight, but that's just an ad for Friday when Jolie and I stream Remake. Let me know if the microphone is glitching out and causing you guys all the biggest headaches of your life. Let's F and go, says Biggles. Hey, guys. Hopefully I sound all right. What's up, Alicia? Good to see you. First words from Alicia tonight. What's up? You guys made it. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties last week. It was a disaster, but it worked out. So now I'm here, just me, and it's boring, and you guys are all sad because you got to experience what it was like to have Jolie, and now you're just stuck here. So anyway, oh no, don't worry, Roosevelt. We're not talking about shipping. Javier always wants me to talk about shipping. There will be a day when I finally tell you guys how I feel. You guys know how I feel, but I will just like lay it all bare and be like, okay, like this is what I'm talking about. But yeah, you guys already know. Like, you can ship if you want to ship, but don't gatekeep and don't tell people how to interpret art. Anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about for that. Anyway, but how do I sound? You guys can hear me? Is it good? Hopefully it's all right. I want to be there, says Alicia. You don't want to be there. It's fine. Just so you guys know, yeah, I was singing in that song when I was in my 20s, hanging out with my band member friends. They pulled me into the recording studio, and I sang some of the parts in that chorus. It was only 3 of us, but they made it sound like people were singing. Thumbs up, thumbs down on the new song, guys. What do you think? A little slower, you know, a little more angsty with my friend Mark. Just sad that none of the girls liked him, and they got married too quick, apparently. But it was glorious last Friday, says Alyssa. It was really good. It was fun having Jolie. Even we should have just like not resumed the stream when we had our power outage and just left it on that cliffhanger if we beat the Scorpion boss or not. But because we got to continue the stream, we got to go on and we got to talk about a lot of spoilery stuff. And someone in chat, I think it was Red Sarge, he's in the UK, and he was like, spoilers for Final Fantasy 16 and spoilers for Final Fantasy 15. So it was a good time, but yeah, it was glorious. Disaster is putting it lightly. It was more like chaos, like co-op chaos, right, Javier? Can't wait to do it again. Yeah. I like it. Very shipping coded. Haha. No, not shipping coded. Anyway, so what are we going to do tonight? I posted on Twitter, but I know a lot of you guys don't hop on Twitter. What did I say here? Here, let me. You guys want to see this? Guys, I'm not verified yet. I said that we were going to talk about the Final Fantasy age problem. Is it a problem? I don't know. This has been so funny. It's so funny how Final Fantasy news just like takes off and like the whole internet talks about it. And I don't think that's just because I'm following Final Fantasy. Obviously, that's a big reason, you know, the algorithm's going to push that stuff to me. But I think it's more like, what was it, in 2024, Final Fantasy was like the 5th most referenced, I think, game on X or Twitter. And it was like only behind like Fortnite and League of Legends and like Genshin Impact or something. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, so anyway, so tonight, what I want to do, this is going to be a little silly, but I want to talk about what everyone has been talking about. I feel like if you guys have opinions, I want to like know your opinions, but here, let me see if this works. Tell me if you guys can see this. I wrote up a PowerPoint because I thought the most boomer thing I could do was make a PowerPoint about what's going on with Final Fantasy VII's age demographic here. And I named it the Final Fantasy Files. See what I did? In case you don't know what UNC is, I used the Merriam-Webster dictionary to define it for you. UNC is a noun, a person, especially a man, who is old or aging or who acts old for their age, often used in the phrase UNC status. I kind of twisted game, was it Game Ranks? What was it? Game Rants title. 77% of US Final Fantasy VII Rebirth players were 30 or older. Final Fantasy has officially reached UNC status. So wow, that's an awkward pun. It's a little bit, I don't know if I should have put it out there because there's some it can get a little slippery quickly, but you know, I checked it out, make sure it was above board. Anyway, but yeah, I have, this is a thing I wrote up, you know, I'm a certified UNC. I'm 40, I'm not 40, I'm 39. I just turned 39 in March. So I'm almost 40 years old. I think the average Final Fantasy player age is 42. But Javier says does it have pie charts and flow charts? Nerd. No, I literally like threw this together. This is like the most I did. the landing page. I was getting the kids to bed and I got everyone off, and my son had music class and I was just running around doing errands all day. So I really didn't flesh this PowerPoint out. It's only got like 5 slides and most of it is just questions that I want to remember to like try and answer. But yeah, so nothing too crazy. 42, that's the average. Yeah. 42 is the average age of a Final Fantasy player, Alicia. Does that make you feel super young or super old? Sage says, I think the age thing is a problem for mainline Final Fantasies like the eventual 17. I think the older crowd has pushed back on a lot of Final Fantasy Evolution, especially with 16. Yeah, so that's what I want to do, Sage, and everyone else. So tonight I was going to do a call-in show, but I couldn't get like it working, and I didn't know if you guys would want to call in. And I know Javier will get here and be like, open up the Discord to everyone so we can all chat, and that would totally work. But yeah, we don't have, like, we have a Discord, but it's like not, you know, I have no rules in it. I don't have like the bylines of all the things that you're supposed to abide by with, you know, without saying derogatory, mean things to each other, and all the like restrictions about, you know, you can't say this or that, and if you do, we'll kick you out. So it's just like right now it's like general chat, like a general voice chat, and like 3 text channels. Actually, Ernest made it, and it has a channel for every single Final Fantasy game, and Jolie was like, is that normal for Discord to have like a bajillion chat rooms? I'm like, yes, it's normal to have a bajillion chat rooms, but so what's Roosevelt saying? He says, you want me to rant about Final Fantasy 16 again? I want to hear everybody's rants tonight, you know. Alicia she's a youngin' in an old person's game, apparently. Javier says, wait, I'm 48, so I'm not the average. You're close to the average. You're bringing up that average a little bit, Javier, but that means there's lots of people like you know? Because if everyone was young like Alicia, then like the average would be 28. I just guessed. I had no idea. But yeah, so we're bringing that up. But I looked this up, and I can tell this in the slides here. But okay, let's see how this works. See, check out my slides. There's nothing. There's no pictures. There's nothing in them. I want to tell you guys kind of my thoughts about the age thing. And then I'll go through like a few questions. I'm going to kind of tell you my spiel of what I think. But I'm, as it says down here below, I'm a certified Final Fantasy noob. I can't claim to know what is going on in the community. I've only been here for a little bit. It's like what Bane says to Batman in The Dark Knight, right? You merely adopted the darkness. I was born into it. Yeah, so I'm like a fake gamer Final Fantasy fan here. But the idea is I just want to like tell you kind of what I'm thinking, and yeah, and then if you guys want, type it out in chat. I'll read it out. Maybe we'll figure out the call-in stream another time. Let me know if would you guys want to call in? Does anyone want to would they want to get on Discord with me and, you know, give their thoughts about stuff? I don't know. I think it's a cool idea, but if nobody wants to do that might be a little weird. But Javier says, copy any other Discord, no biggie, laugh out loud. All right. I'm 28. and love the OG Final Fantasy VII, the remakes. That's age. I guessed that Alicia was 28, but it was you all along. What community? The Final Fantasy has many split communities. Pick your pick your potion or poison. Either way. So, okay. Is it really a problem? I'm going to bounce around from things like for a little bit, but I don't think this is unique to Final Fantasy. I think it might be more exaggerated in the Final Fantasy community because, okay, the average, what's the statistic that like more than 77% of gamers who played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth were over the age of 30, and then like it went up to like over 35 plus was like 62%. So it's just showing that the overwhelming majority are like in their 30s or above, right? But I don't think this is like a unique thing to Final Fantasy. And like, is it really a problem? Maybe, but I think this is common for a lot of franchises. Let me see if I can find this here. So the average age of a video gamer is 41 years old. I just looked that up. That's according to Google. I don't know how true that is, but yeah. I mean, do you guys think that like other game series are struggling and aren't finding a younger generation? That's kind of like the narrative that's going around. And here's kind of my takes on it. Why is it happening? Here, I'll show you this. Just pull up my Photoshop here so you guys can see all of the stuff we're working on. And yeah, this was the thumbnail for the stream here. We got, is Final Fantasy too old? And I got Squaresoft here, and they're just dumping Nintendo. Poor Mario. I think I did a pretty good thumbnail here. And he's taking his PlayStation. You know, he's super excited about it. This is kind of silly, but I kind of believe that this is true. Me and Jolie were talking about this. If you think Final Fantasy is like losing its younger audience, my kind of argument is, well, yeah. Final Fantasy VI was the last like mainline Final Fantasy game that was on a Nintendo platform until we just got Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated on the Switch. It's been years since they've given us. I'm like a Nintendo fan, so I'm like, I obviously have a bias here. They've given Nintendo fans the ability to play Final Fantasy. Now, why does this matter? You know, obviously Squaresoft went with PlayStation, and that was I think that was the right move. But can you guys think of a PlayStation franchise that started on the Sony PlayStation 1 that is relevant with children today? Crash Bandicoot is dead. I mean, they try to revive it. It's not happening. Spyro the Dragon like exists in like remasters, but like kids don't care about it. There's no like mascot or Parappa the Rapper is not a big deal. So many things from the PlayStation 1 era, like it was like a JRPG machine, and it was like amazing. And I would argue that it was like for kids when the PlayStation came out, it was new and novel, and it introduced so many people to JRPGs, right? And they switched during a time when Nintendo was not making it easy for Squaresoft to realize their vision. I understand that, right? Because what was Nintendo doing? Nintendo was doing the N64, and that was like a really crappy machine to kind of realize the, you know, stuff that Squaresoft wanted to do. I put Squaresoft because this was when they switched over to PlayStation before they became Square Enix. But this is when you have like the golden age of Final Fantasy, right? This is when Sakaguchi's Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9. I know that they were made by different people, but like he was kind of leading the ship, and you had like boom, 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 all on the PlayStation 1. Incredible, right? But then you go to PlayStation 2. kind of becomes like an older person's machine. Still kids, right? Now think of a PlayStation 3. Is a PlayStation 3 like you've got what games came out on PlayStation 3? Was it Final Fantasy 13? I know that Final Fantasy 12 came out on the PlayStation 2. But you have Final Fantasy X, 10, Final Fantasy 10-2, you have and then you have Final Fantasy 12 on the PlayStation 2. And then you go to Final Fantasy 13 and all the stuff that's going on there and all the troubled development with verses and whatever that's going to happen, And then we don't get another mainline Final Fantasy game until PlayStation 4 and Final Fantasy 15. And we know about that troubled development. And then you get, that's the last one, yeah. And then you get Final Fantasy 7 remake on the PlayStation 4, but that's a remake. It's not a new entry in the mainline Final Fantasy series. I don't know. I kind of consider it a new entry, but I know that it's a remake, but it's doing new stuff. And then you've got a PlayStation 5. My point is that they abandoned Nintendo, right? This is Andy saying, I don't want to play with you anymore. They abandoned them for good reasons, but when I think of a PlayStation 5 gamer, I know that kids get these things for Christmas and you see stuff and they're really excited if they get a PlayStation 5, but I still think Nintendo is like the dominant force when it comes to younger children and starting them off with games when they're young. That was like the time when the PlayStation 1 was doing Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. That's kind of that's the space that Nintendo occupies now, right? I think if you get a PlayStation 5, it's like you're either playing sports games or Call of Duty, I think you're playing some type of JRPGs, for a niche audience, but I don't think it's as ubiquitous as like the PlayStation 1 was to play like RPGs. So, for me, like the Nintendo kids were abandoned. And I think like I'm someone who represents those families. Our kids play what's on Nintendo. Jolie and I were even looking. We're like, what should we introduce? How should we introduce Final Fantasy to our kids? We were thinking like, well, what do we do? And if like there was a more like a mainline entry, we're thinking about introducing our kids to like maybe Final Fantasy 4 or Final Fantasy 6 first. We don't know. There's some heavy themes, and our oldest son's only 7. He's turning 7. But anyway, we're like totally going for it. Okay, and then why else is this happening? Why else is like Final Fantasy becoming older and older? I think the youths only play on Roblox and Minecraft, Fortnite, and Call of Duty. It's kind of insane. But let me catch up in chat. That's just kind of what I'm thinking here. Hey, Toolman's here. What's up, Toolman? Let's see. I know Alyssa won't mind talking on stream, right, sis? That was when I was asking if anyone would want to. Single player games, I believe, are ... Biggle says, I think the statistic was part of the larger survey of tons of games, predictably showing sports games having the lowest average age. Oh boy, Final Fantasy better copy those for sure. Totally. So it's funny because I feel like this is drama kind of made out of nothing. I'll show you if I can find it. I don't have it. I was going to have it right here and pull it up on my PowerPoint. So I could totally represent my UNC status. But yeah, I think I can find it, but we'll pull that up. But it's basically saying that there are averages in a lot of different franchises, and most of them are like over 30, which is hilarious, right? Some like the lowest you get, even to Fortnite. I think Fortnite was like the average age was like 28 or 27. So, but yeah, we'll pull that up after I get through chat. I don't think they should copy sports games, Biggles. So yes, is it Impact font? Try it with Papyrus real quick. I want to see something. Are you talking to me or someone else? I feel like nearly every company has the problem except for Nintendo, given the type of games they make. Yeah, totally. Like I just don't see like God of War, like even like Sony's tentpole first-party games are targeted towards dads like in their late 30s. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason why the sad dad meme is a thing, right? It's like Kratos during the PS2 era was just like, blood and sex and killing and all this stuff. And then and then in like the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, it's like about raising kids and having a family because we've all grown up, You know, the average age of a gamer is 41, and a lot of those people have families and children. So it's just like, I feel like the demographic is aging in all types of video games, especially in the PlayStation ecosystem. I think the only game like company that's been able, like publisher, they're Nintendo's both, right? They're developers and publishers, but they're the only ones who've managed to kind of hold on to that younger demographic. And their games aren't even the most played games, but they are in families' homes. I just know this anecdotally from my experience, right? And all my brothers and sisters, and they all have Switches, and they're all in the homes. And their kids are playing Breath of the Wild, and they're playing Kirby, and they're playing, Pokemon, and they're playing all these Nintendo franchises, and they don't even know what Final Fantasy is. They have no idea, right? So yeah, you're right, Roosevelt. Toolman says Final Fantasy is dead. It's over. Everyone changed franchises. We're Street Fighter fans now, or something. I don't know. It's like, the funny thing is, because like, yeah, right here what I'm saying, that the average gamer is 41 years old. It's like hilarious, because that's why I'm saying, is this really a problem? I think it's multifaceted. I obviously think Square Enix is chasing this demographic, but I don't necessarily think that it's a problem, because I think most games are for older people, But let's keep going. So yes, Toolman, we should give up. Let's not even play it. Spyro dead. You heard it here. Spyro's dead, man. Avatar fan, Mr. Bigglesworth, laugh out loud. Javier, everyone likes Avatar. Is it Avatar, like the real Avatar, Last Airbender? That's the good stuff. Yeah, I think it's difficult to pry the youngins away from free-to-play and easily accessible games like Fortnite and Roblox. Definitely. Then there's the crowd that only play FIFA, Madden, 2K, and COD. Yeah. So, like, my nephew is 13. He has a PlayStation 5. All he wants to play is NBA 2K and Call of Duty and Fortnite. And I'm like, hey, man, you want to play this cool game called Final Fantasy VII Remake? And he looked at me like I was the dumbest idiot to have ever asked that question. Oh, I failed my nephew. My brother, whose son it is, he's like into dirt bikes, and he's never looked at like an anime in his life. He's never, when I make the statues in my house, he's just like, man, are you okay? So that's kind of the family dynamic. But I'm like, dude, you should try it. It's cool. Don't listen to your dad. Listen to me. But I wish I could try and pull up statistics, but I'm lame and don't have it prepared. But I have seen it before, so you can just trust me, because I obviously know what I'm talking about. That there was like this statistic, I think it was from Circana and Matt Piscatella. He was saying that there are like this pie. We've talked about this before, but right, if you look at a pie chart and you just think of like the amount of games that were played in 2025 or 2024, right? And what were like the top 5 games, and then all the other games, like the hundreds or the thousands of other games that came out that year. Like overwhelmingly, like half of the pie was just taken up by like these 5 games, Like you've got your sports stuff, and then your Call of Duties, and like a few of the live service games, and then you've got Minecraft, Fortnite and Roblox, and that's like it, And then we, even though we might have disposable income, us unks, or us old people, we just don't have the time to play all the games that we want, right? So if you're a publisher or a developer and you're like, what are we gonna make? Who are we gonna make games for? Do we make games for that small sliver of pie and try to like carve out our little niche, or are we gonna try and expand it to this wider audience? So yeah, Sage, I kind of get what you're saying. Alicia says maybe instead. They've got the LTD too. I'm behind. I don't know. Maybe you're like Remake or I don't know. RE. Maybe Resident Evil. Mr. Bigglesworth. Oh, there you guys are talking. You can't keep getting away with this. Sony definitely have that problem, and they should make more family-oriented games, E10 games like they did in the PS1, PS2. And it's like, so here's the thing, though, right? Sorry. Back to my awesome graphic here. But Sony, I feel like Astrobot was a good attempt to do that, right? But Astrobot sold like, I don't know, 2-3 million copies, and it won Game of the Year, and it was awesome, right? I think if consumers could reliably bank that Sony was going to provide those experiences more often, then like they wouldn't, maybe they would consider Sony as like a family console, right? If they wanted to get a PlayStation, it's like for my kid who likes Call of Duty and Fortnite and sports games, but also like my younger kid can play Astrobot. And if there were like more experiences like that. Because if you think about it, like PlayStation had all those developers, like they had Sucker Punch that was like doing Sly Cooper games, right? And then they went on and now they're making like Ghost of Tsushima. Like they've matured with their audience, right? They didn't continue making like the Sly Cooper games, right? And then they, same thing with Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog starts out with Crash Bandicoot, and then they move on to Jak and Daxter, and then they move on to Uncharted, and then they move on to Last of Us. It's like it's getting more gritty and dark, like as older as you get, right? So yeah, as much as I would like Sony to do that, I feel like Sony has kind of painted themselves into a corner, and they're facing this issue too. It's not just a Square Enix problem, right? That's why I'm saying this isn't unique just to Square, because I think Nintendo has been the only one that has been able to provide experiences for both children and adults. And maybe that's just because us adults are just dumb and nostalgic for like, every Mario game that comes out and every Zelda game that comes out. I don't think that's totally fair. I think they have been able to reinvent themselves, where Final Fantasy has floundered trying to find what will stick with the new generation. I think we've all seen that, and we can admit that like that's what they're trying to do when they keep kind of they always have famously changed up their mechanics and different things. So, whether it's their turn-based to ATB, and then they move on to sort of, see, this is where I'm a Final Fantasy noob, but I understand like the history of it, but I don't know, like I didn't play all these games, but like the junction system and 8, and then you move on to like 12 with the Gambit system, and then you have 13, the paradigm shifts and all this stuff, and then you have MMOs, and then 15 is real time, but it's like kind of weird, it's not party based, and 16 is like straight up combat, and it feels like they're chasing that younger audience, but at least they've been consistently inconsistent in their game design. Some would argue that they want them to go back to the turn based, but I do think that is a problem, Final Fantasy, that they've always tried to reinvent themselves every time, and that maybe that was novel and unique in the, I don't know, like maybe PS1 era, when you could pump out games within a year. You'd get things done in like 9-10 months and be ready for the next calendar year to like market and ship your game. But that's just not reality anymore. So I don't think they have that luxury of experimentation. I think that they should switch to iteration. But so anyway, I'm going on. But yeah, I agree with you, Roosevelt. I just don't know if they're going to do that. Javier says, is Tomb Raider a kid-friendly game? Yeah, but Tomb Raider just kind of had the rights to Eidos, right? Who made it? Is that who it was? I mean, they've gotten rid of Tomb Raider now. They don't own the rights anymore. Which I think is actually good. They've kind of consolidated and gotten rid of all their Western studios, and they're focusing like solely on their Eastern stuff. Sage says Final Fantasy evolved a lot. Of the player base did not vibe with anything past Final Fantasy X. Yeah, and I mean, like, this is, I know like his name is like Voldemort. You shan't, like, don't bring up Sebi, right? I think Sebi, here's what I'll say about Sebi. I think that he is a lightning rod for people that feel the way that he's expressing. I don't think you can say that the people who are frustrated with modern Final Fantasy titles like aren't actually upset about the direction that Square Enix has taken the franchise. Because obviously he's resonating with people. You know what I mean? I don't like the way he goes about it. He's obviously found a way that, because of the way the internet is, he no longer critiques he likes to put down or make fun of, and you know he's using that kind of rage engagement in order to get his point across. And I think a lot of people resonate with him, obviously, or else he wouldn't be getting views. I think there's a level of Schadenfreude that's like, there's people that are just so mad at the direction that Final Fantasy has gone in, and there's someone that's like, punching down on the people who like those things. Or maybe he'd say he's punching up because he's in the minority. I don't know. And so it's made people be like, yes, like finally, like a guy who can articulate what I'm thinking, And maybe another controversial thing is like, I don't think that those people's viewpoints are invalid. I just don't think that we need to belittle or berate or put other people down in order to get our point across. I think Sebi could be totally effective in giving his viewpoints and saying, I don't like this, right? But then not saying that the people that do like that are stupid or dumb, So, yeah, Zage, I agree with you that there's people that don't vibe. Like, obviously that's true, Because I don't like this whole, like, this is the problem I have with the shippers, right? Is that like it has to be like a hive mind group thing, like you agree or else like you're excommunicated. You cannot say anything bad about Tifa, you cannot say anything bad about Aerith. This is canon, this is not canon. It's like, just let people enjoy the art, right? So yeah, it just like, obviously there's people that are upset with it, and there's obviously people that like the new direction, right? It's divisive. Roosevelt says, Ratchet and Clank is the only one that comes to mind, but even that takes a long breaks. Yeah. And that's like Insomniac's that's the one thing from Insomniac that they've carried forward, right? And who knows how much they've moved the needle. But you do have Ratchet and Clank, and you have Astrobot. And so like Sony hasn't totally abandoned that space, but it just feels like getting a PlayStation just feels more mature than obviously getting a Nintendo. Nintendo, you're going to have first party games that support your little kids play style for years, Alicia says those death scenes though. I feel like everything Alicia said above, she's like, maybe Resident Evil, and then she said those death scenes though. I'm totally like, I'm missing. I don't know if you're talking about like Final Fantasy X or something. Toolman says Sony reinvented too many times. Basically every gen they reinvented their lineup. Yeah, and it's kind of made it so like their IP doesn't hold as much weight, right? I know Nintendo gets a pass because it's just nostalgia fuel, but they've done a good job of keeping their franchises relevant. But it's like when you had, what was it, Sony All-Stars, the competitor to Smash Bros or whatever. It's like you had like Fat Princess and like Parappa the Rapper and then Nathan Drake, and it was like Kratos. I mean, it's cool. It's a cool idea, but like, if for some reason Nintendo, when you're fighting against each other, it just feels like it works. But then when I saw that game, I'm like, this is an abomination. It just felt like their IP didn't have that lasting power. Nintendo obviously has like that Disney-esque quality where it's like Mario will always be a name. He's better known than Mickey Mouse. So yeah, I agree, Toolman. Ratchet and Clank and Jak franchise had the wheels to go far, but they were mostly dropped. Okay, so yeah, I mean Ratchet is still kind of hanging on, but I know that Jak was cool and people forgot about it. Javier says the PS1 was aimed at adults, Spencer, not for kids. Okay, that's a good argument, right? But I think like kids played it back then. I know it was like Nintendo versus PlayStation, and it was like, but I remember that's like when I grew up, because I was at that age when the Nintendo 64, and I was the N64 kid. I'm like, well, you don't have Ocarina of Time, and it has like a gold cartridge, and it's so rad. But everyone's like, I have these bajillion RPGs, and they're all amazing. I had a friend named Derek, and he loved Final Fantasy, and I used to make fun of him. I'm just spilling confessions now. I used to make fun of Jolie. I'd be like, you like that game where they just stand there and they like bounce up and down and wait for their turn to go and attack? I always thought it was so weird, I'm like, when I play Zelda, I can like freely move Link, and I can chop when I want to chop, and I can dodge, and I can block, and I don't know. I thought turn-based was so lame. Ironically, my favorite Christmas of all time was when I got a Game Boy Color and Pokemon Red, and the strategy guide that came with it, because I was dumb and we didn't have the internet back then. How old was I? I don't know when it came out, but I was young enough where like internet wasn't a thing for me, and it was amazing. That's still like that was like my first RPG was Pokemon Red. And I think I've told you before, my little brother got Pokemon Yellow, and his sprites were all updated and looked good for Game Boy Color. And mine were the old Game Boy sprites, and the colors weren't right, and it kind of bothered me. Never told my parents, though. Still my favorite Christmas. Could have been so much better, though. Yeah. So Toolman says Uncharted was their PS3 seller. Final Fantasy OG, technically, it's not a kid's game. There's a honeybee in there. Right, I get it, but like, whether you like it or not, I understand that the content wasn't necessarily for children, but kids were still playing the PlayStation 1. But I think that they grew up, and what my point here with this silly graphic is that they never recaptured those younger audiences as it evolved, right? As the PlayStation, consoles matured, so did its audience, and it wasn't continuing to capture the newer, younger generation, right? I think Nintendo has successfully done that in a like broad sense. Obviously, when we talk about Fortnite and Minecraft and all that stuff, I think a lot of just the console space has been eroded by tablets and mobile devices. But we'll get to that. I remember going from my N64 collection to Final Fantasy X on PS2 and it feeling like a step back gameplay-wise, despite the visuals. Yeah, I mean there are some things, there are some people that struggled to kind of switch back to PlayStation. I remember that argument on the playground was, yeah, you might have those cool cutscenes, but then when it switches to gameplay, like it looks like, but it was like because everything on the N64 had to be rendered in game. You couldn't have like, I mean, they had cutscenes, but they were using the in-game renderings rather than, a pre-rendered video. They could make look very cool like CG renders. Final Fantasy 13 Trilogy, this is Roosevelt, and a couple of other Final Fantasy spin-off games came out on the Wii. Yeah, see, so like Final Fantasy 13 was the first time that they had kind of experimented releasing it back on to Nintendo platforms. I didn't know that 13 came to Wii. I knew that it came to Xbox 360, but I didn't think the Wii was capable of running 13. Is that true? Check Roosevelt, but I'll trust you for now. Alicia says 15 was my first Final Fantasy game. Had a good time with it. 15 was a lot of people's first Final Fantasy game. That was like that was my first one in the modern one that I watched Jolie play. I got that for her birthday. But yeah, she played 15 a lot later when it came out on Windows. Javier says Final Fantasy 1 and the NES was my first Final Fantasy. Hot dang. Javier, that's some unk status, bro. Arts Vanti, I've been a Sony pony since it first launched. I never touched an internet console until the Wii. Shout out to Arts Vanti. What's up, Arts Vanti? Yeah, I think that's cool, right? And maybe Arts Vanti, I don't know if you're still around. I'm super behind on chats. Is that something that like as you've gone on, you're a Sony pony, so you still follow Sony? So maybe you've grown up with PlayStation. Like I never grew up with PlayStation because my parents got me the NES and then we skipped the Super Nintendo era. And then I got an N64. So I like had zero RPGs other than like the original Final Fantasy, but I never had that game. So the first time like I was introduced to like RPGs were like I had the GameCube and like that's when I knew Jolie and she had Final Fantasy on PlayStation and then she had Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles because she just got every Final Fantasy game. And I like maybe played that for like 10 minutes and that was it. So I didn't like play a Final Fantasy game until like PlayStation 4. You know what I mean? So I like had I been a Super Nintendo kid, maybe I would have gotten into the Final Fantasy games, but I just never was. I feel like it was inevitable if you were a PlayStation person, like you had to know Final Fantasy, Let's see here. Toolman says Final Fantasy really isn't a kids franchise. I feel like you got to be low teens at least really appreciate and understand it. Yeah, I agree. But I think that parents don't challenge their kids to enjoy like narrative games. If you think about like what's popular and like what the majority of kids play with Minecraft and um even how Nintendo reinvented Breath of the Wild, it's like they're building games, they're crafting games, they're exploring games, things where kids can kind of just go and play. They don't have to follow a linear story. Because if they're expected to listen to the story, they kind of get lost. But I remember being like in junior high when that started to matter to me, So yeah, I think what you're saying is true, but it's like I think Final Fantasy would be thrilled if even that age group was playing their games, and I don't think that they necessarily are. I think some are, but like in their teens, I don't know if that's happening anymore. Ars Vendi says my first game was Final Fantasy X at 16 years old. See, yeah, he was 16. The first Final Fantasy game that ever stuck with me was Crystal Chronicles on the GameCube. Heck yeah, Biggles. I was just talking about that. Franco, what's up? Finally caught you on the stream, man. Are you at work right now, Franco? Franco's in Australia, so I have to call him out every time he gets on. Yeah, tuning in from work. That's what he says. Yeah. 7-year-old at the perfect age for Final Fantasy 7. Is that when you played 7? Or are you just joking because that's when 7-year-olds should start playing 7? Arts Venti said, I started the franchise with Final Fantasy 10. Okay, 2009, sophomore year. That's cool, man. So that was like, what? When did 10 come out? In 2000, 2001? So it was like 8 years after it came out. Toolman says, Fortnite exploded with people just slightly younger than me. So yeah, 25 would be the right average age. Then Gen Alpha kids play Roblox. It's weird and bad, but it's a different topic. Dude, Roblox is gross. Like, not just because of the like obviously predator stuff that's happening with children on there. What I'm saying is, like, this is my main point. I haven't gotten to it. Let's go back to my slideshow because I'm so fancy here. I'm gonna skip ahead because it makes sense here, Toolman. But like, see, I was gonna say what should Square Enix do, but we'll talk about it. What can we do about it? And nobody ever talks about this, right? Because it's like, what is the company gonna do for us? But we're the consumers and we're the ones who buy the products. Don't give your kids slop. Just stop it, okay? Don't let your kids play Roblox. I'm 39. I have 3 children, and they will never touch Roblox. They will never touch it because I'm a parent, and I'm going to indoctrinate them in the games that I want them to play. My kids already play all the Mario stuff. They play Smash Brothers. Kyler is he's my oldest. He's 7 years old. Well, he's about to be 7. And he started playing Pokemon, and he freaking loves it. The thing about Nintendo, though, is like they have like this Trojan horse mechanic where it's like it's an RPG and you meet characters, but really the joy of Pokemon is catching all the monsters. It's like this. It's like a collecting game, like Mario and whatever. You're going and collecting coins or moons or stars. The same thing with Pokemon, but you're just collecting awesome Pokemon. And guess what? Kids are obsessed with the evolutions. They know everything about the Pokemon, what their abilities are. Like my son just started playing and he's still like hyper obsessed with everything. So it's like a special set of genius, and it still kind of keeps it in that Minecraft headspace. It's like, why has Pokemon endured so long? Because guess what? Pokemon has captured generations. What's up, Drumjawed? Thanks for the follow. But yeah, Pokemon has captured generations of players. And they haven't lost a lot of them, right? I mean, they've lost me. I'm like a Gen 1 elitist, but I know a ton of gamers continue to buy the Pokemon stuff that comes out every year. And when I say don't give your kids slop, like Pokemon and Game Freak are very close to being considered slop. But at least, like, I know that their games aren't very technically sound, but at least you're going on an adventure, you're catching all these Pokemon. It's not like Roblox. Like, I'm talking about Roblox with slop. So yeah, I say all of this was created because we gave a generation of gamers tablets instead of quality games. I totally think this is true, and I know this sounds stupid, and this is like a boomer version of me, but like there is a generation of kids who grew up with tablets because that was like the new thing. you know? And then mobile became huge. And if you're a mobile gamer and you're playing Ever Crisis, or if you're playing the new Final Fantasy game, like, good for you guys. Like, totally get it. Sometimes that's like the only place you can get, or you couldn't get yourself on a PC or a console, like, whatever. But the companies had to pivot and cater towards those players because it was such a bigger net. But I would argue that the quality of those games never reached the levels that were on console or PC, right? So don't give your kids slop. If what can we do? I've said this. Get married, have kids, and then give them the games you want them to play. You know what I mean? Don't let them just sit. The thing why parents love Fortnite and Roblox is because they can just sit their kid down and stick them in front of a TV, and then they don't have to do anything because that game will entertain them for hours. Whereas, like, maybe a Final Fantasy game is a bit of a struggle or a narrative, and they can't really get, like, a story scene, or they can't get over some hurdle and then they drop it, you know? But it's like, you should challenge your kids to play that stuff because it helps them. It is good for them to experience storytelling and, you know, and learn about these things rather than it just being like, I think the Minecraft stuff and the Roblox stuff, they lure parents in with the excitement of it being like, it's creative, it's like Legos, you know, and they just get lost in this world. And I think that's true to a certain extent with Minecraft, but then they just get obsessed with, like, stuff, you know. I've seen all this stuff, and I don't think, I'm not totally including Minecraft because I do think that, you know, it's got some really good things for kids or whatever. But when it gets into the Roblox stuff, oh man. Coolman says that was a different topic, and then I just couldn't shut up about it. So anyway, yeah, don't give your kids slop, guys. Nintendo has Pokemon and Mario. I'd be crazy if they somehow lost their intended audience. Yeah, totally. I don't think that they're going to, you know, because, and that was the problem with Square. Like, they decided to go with PlayStation, and it was probably the right move at the time, but their audience has just grown up, and they never recaptured it, whereas, like, Nintendo is still that. And we'll have to see. Like, I think this is a new pivot from Square Enix to recapture Nintendo. I would be surprised. I know that it's still underpowered, but I think Square Enix titles and Final Fantasy titles specifically will sell well on the Nintendo. Way better than the Xbox. The Xbox doesn't really even exist anymore. Sorry, Javier. Alyssa says, you and I are on the same page on this one, Brother Smith. Laugh out loud. At least you tried. I don't think it's a problem. Final Fantasy is a niche franchise. It's designed to and created for their fan base. New players come into the Final Fantasy world because of friend recommendation or by hype games like the Re-Trilogy. Totally. I don't think that's how Square Enix sees it, unfortunately, Javier. I think they want Final Fantasy to be the biggest thing ever. And I think they've been chasing that forever because I think they had that for a little bit. I don't know if this is, like, rude to say, but, like, I'm not trying to be stereotype or insensitive here. I really do think that there's, like, some level of, like, honor. And I know that's, like, a stereotype for Asian culture or whatever, but I think that they love their franchise and they love Final Fantasy, you know? I think the same thing for Dragon Quest and the Enix stuff. But they want it to be, like, huge again, you know? And they do so many things right. We always talk about this. If you guys missed it, when Jolie and I were streaming our second half of the stream after the stream broke, we talk a lot about how Final Fantasy does so many things right, but then they falter in certain areas, right? And they've kind of been lapped by some more Western games, like, you know, Sony first party games that are so well acted and motion capped and, like, and the graphics that, like, Final Fantasy was, like, the king of graphics and the most beautiful things. They're not that anymore, you know? And I think the developers at Square Enix just want to taste that again. I don't blame them. And I think the stuff that they make is incredible. But we talked about earlier, it's divisive, you know? We talked about Sebi and his audience and a lot of people that agree with him. I don't think that their complaints are invalid. I don't like the way that Sebi goes about it, but I think it's just obvious that there's a huge group of people that don't like the direction. Now there's a lot of people that do, and we're having exciting times because we're excited for part 3. But yeah, like, I would say, Javier, that you say, like, it's a niche franchise. Yeah, but I think that they they kind of tasted when they were on top, when it was like 7, 8, 9, and then culminating in Final Fantasy 10, and it was just huge and sold a ton, you know. And they even got a taste of it with 15. That sold. I think that's their best selling game. Could be wrong, but you know, they were still kind of like climbing, and now it's just like, so when they have 16 and it sells like, I don't know, what are we at, like 5 million, 4 million now, and 15 has sold like over 10 million or more. I don't know. Don't quote my numbers. But yeah. Bagel says, if you wanted to see that list of games, Subtext retweeted about 9 hours ago. Yeah. Yeah, I'll pull it up. I know that Subtext, let's see. Where are we here? Subtext. Where are you at, buddy? Talk to me, Goose. I don't know. There it is. Okay. So yeah, he retweeted this. Are we gonna be able to see this? Holy cow, this is what? What the heck? Save image. Give me this image. I need it. Open it up. Okay. Here we go. Can we see here? All right. That looks awful. Sorry. All right. So it says click here for the gender ratio and average age of representative games in Japan. Okay, so this is Japan. This is not North America or Europe. Okay, so the the youngest title on this game is Brasta, a MOBA. I have no idea what that is. Project World, a rhythm game, 22. eFootball, 22. Valorant, FPS. That is 23 years old. Star Rail, I have no idea what that is. That's an RPG, 25. Apex Legends, Blue Archive. Okay, so you've got some RPGs. It sounds like these Blue Archives and Collapse, are these like gacha games that are technically rhythm games? Gender ratio, okay, male to female. I'm guessing males on the right. Oh, check this out. Shout out to Emblem Stars. 5% male and 95% female. That's pretty rare. Okay, so you're getting through some sports stuff, mostly men, 25. Zenless Zone 0. 26. Genshin. Look at that split. Good job, Genshin. 26. See, but like we're already approaching 30, and these are like mobile gacha games, right? So it's funny to me that they're like Final Fantasy. I know that they're down here at the list when they're like 42, right? Splatoon, Wonderland, Monster Strike, Minecraft, 28 years old. This is interesting. Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, Kirby Star Series. Look, Kirby at the Star Series is 30 years old. Kirby is like the most baby of baby games. And see, like this should be the headline. Kirby of the Stars series. 30 years old. Bunch of 30-year-olds are playing Kirby. You know what I mean? So it's like funny. That's why I think it's like not really a problem. I think the problem is that everybody is competing with Fortnite and Zenless Zone Zero and Genshin, right? And Minecraft. This is who they're competing with in Valorant and these like, you know, MOBAs. Then you've got like all these single player games, you know, that people are fighting against. Because there's just not enough time and there's not enough room in the time economy to, you know, spend on all this stuff. So single player gamers are just like lost in the dust because the things that make the most money are the service games, and the things that, you know, take the most time are the service games or these forever games. Pokemon series, told you, man. 32 years old, average, boom. Yes, but they've got a good, you know, male to female split. I can read some of the chat, the newer chat here. Word, TBF, Kirby, and the Forgotten Land was fire. Hey, to be fair, yeah. I mean, I play it with my kid, and it is awesome. Like, you know. So, I'll catch back on the old chat here, but I can see kind of what you're writing here. Parents like cheap games too, Javier, says Alyssa. Yeah, they do. But, you know, spend a little bit of money on your kids and get them something good. That's what we do. We're going to let our kids play Final Fantasy as soon as they're ready. I think this is interesting. Legend of Zelda series, the average age is 35 years old, right? And Subtext makes a good point here. He's like, so is this like a specifically unique problem to Final Fantasy? If we go all the way down here, we've got the Final Fantasy series, right? Which is 42 years old, mostly male. But in the Dragon Quest series, poor Final Fantasy, poor Square Enix. Look at their two biggest franchises. They're at like the bottom of the list. I don't know. Games in general is about 30 years old, but they are the very bottom. So maybe that's why we're talking about it. Because, yes, we are some of the oldest, players that play games, and that we kind of focus in on that. But it's interesting because Dragon Quest has not been able to reinvent itself. Dragon Quest is like doing its remasters and they're putting out stuff, but Dragon Quest was always like traditional. They stuck. The whole thing about Dragon Quest is that they don't reinvent themselves. You know what you're getting when you get a Dragon Quest game, whereas Final Fantasy was always something new. Anyway, yeah, so 42. But, Legend of Zelda, 35. It jumps up here. What I think is interesting, let's talk about Resident Evil for a second. So, let's see. I'm here. Let's go to what Square Enix can do. Pick a lane. I say Square Enix has lacked an identity for decades. Lean into what makes you, you. And this is someone, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm obviously a newbie to Square Enix and their Final Fantasy series. Maybe that statistic about how Capcom, formerly Crapcom, have clawed their way back, being one of the best publishers. And I know that there's that big investor, there's a big investor in Square Enix that kind of forced. I don't know what they did, but they put out a big report. I don't know if you guys looked through this, but they were kind of saying, "Oh, this is the thing that Square Enix should do." And basically, the overall high level thought was they should just copy Capcom, and maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe you go all in on your big stuff and you revitalize Final Fantasy like they've done with Resident Evil, because this is just me. I've never played any of the Resident Evil games other than Resident Evil Remake on the GameCube. I barely got through a third of that game probably. But they brought this beloved franchise, and you had you had Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4 was huge, right? Then 5 was okay, kind of action, and then 6 was just what is this? Are we even survival horror anymore? And then they have this big reboot. And this is very common for games to have these big reboots where they reinvent themselves and they gain back the love of their more mature audience. But then you have Final Fantasy. Wow, I keep saying Final Fantasy. You have Resident Evil 7. I think it was called Biohazard or something. Never played these games, but from my, through osmosis, I've never played these games, but I listen to podcasts and stuff, and they say that this is a good one, right? This is back to kind of their roots. And then you get Village, and then they start doing the remakes of the old ones, and they're happening at the same time. So you get 7, and then they remake 2, and then you get Village, and then they remake 3, and then they're working on Requiem, and then you get the remake of 4, and it's just boom, 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 and they're hitting you with a Resident Evil all the time with modern controls, upgraded visuals, and the games don't overstay their welcome, and people are liking them. I know Toolman's probably in the chat right now saying okay, it's funny. I didn't even notice, but I look at it. Yeah, Toolman's we don't need to talk about Resident Evil. But we do, Toolman. We do need to talk about this because this is a way to revitalize your franchise. Maybe you don't like the direction that they're going. I've seen some of your criticism. You're not thrilled with Requiem. If I don't want to speak for you, but yeah. But they have done a good job of making sure that Resident Evil is a thing. I think Resident Evil 2 Remake has sold 15 million copies. These are no slouches. They're doing really well. Whereas Final Fantasy is it kind of feels like they're trying to do that, right? Where they have these remake series and they're coming out, and then they've still got mainline games coming out, and they're starting to do the remakes and remasters of all the stuff we loved. You just saw the statistic or what was the article that just came out that they were 2025's like top Metacritic publisher, and they've never got that before. But that was carried on the back of like Final Fantasy Tactics, Evil East Chronicles. It had like some Bravely Default remaster or something. You know, you have Octopath Traveler, and there was like some other one. I don't know, like Dragon Quest. You know, the remakes or something. But yeah, like. Yeah, Roosevelt's saying what I'm. To be fair, they're already copying Capcom, right? I think they're just behind, right? I think they are, and this is true. Like the new CEO, this is kind of like his vision. He's like, we want to focus on quality experiences and then kind of start to get them. And I think we're in the beginning of that. So when I say what should Square Enix do, I don't think that they're necessarily doing anything wrong. I just think we're at the beginning of like the restructuring phase. Or if you're a sports fan, right? It's like we're in the rebuilding years where we're trying to get the team up again, and then they'll start, hitting. I think having like a singular vision, I still think Square Enix, when I say pick a lane, has lacked the identity for decades. I feel this. I think it's just like, do you guys not feel this? I don't know. I'm not trying to be like a downer, but I just feel like Square Enix doesn't know who it is or what it wants. I always make fun of them for their dumb naming conventions, their weird release schedules when they release like 4 of their games in like 2 weeks on top of each other, and they cannibalize, and it's like, what are you doing, Square? It's like, find out who you are, what you want to like produce, and then just be laser focused and go for that. There's a great video from the Final Fantasy Union. They know so much more than I do, and they talk about like the state of Square Enix, and they go through like every CEO and like what their vision was, and kind of like the rise and fall of the golden age of Final Fantasy and how much they were making on HD games, and then when they started to become reliant on mobile games, and they were making tons and tons of money on like obscure games that like a lot of people hadn't known, but then maybe they had, and now they're kind of switching back to their main franchises, but they don't want to forget mobile, and it's like it kind of felt like they never really knew who they were, right? I feel like Capcom is like they've every publisher has all this stuff. But it just feels like Capcom has a clear vision, and they're going for it, and they're executing. And I just feel like Square Enix is trying to be that right now, but they're floundering a little bit. But Javier says Resident Evil is also a niche market, Spencer, but horror has more than JRPG. Yeah, that's totally true. They're not apple to apples comparisons. You're gonna have horror games that are everyone loves to stream them, and like younger kids are gonna play them. But that statistic showed that like the average age of a Resident Evil player was 38. They're still old. They're up there. They're getting close to the 42 of us oldies here in the Final Fantasy realm. So yes, that's true, and it's a niche franchise, but it's selling more than Final Fantasy, significantly more actually. So anyway, that's like, I know, take that for what you will. I don't really know everything, so let me try and speed through some of the stuff. But yeah, that's basically my PowerPoint. See, this was my final funk to see. It sounds a little bad, right? But let's look at it anyway. I promised I would do a PowerPoint, so I did. Let me see. Let me see if I can skim through some of the stuff. Toolman says Naughty Dog lost their spice. That's what it is. I'm just going to go quick through this. Roosevelt, like every company, they just need to be more consistent with release, kind of what we're talking about. Yeah, the team's a studio. But while I'm kind of going through these chats, I do want you guys to kind of like, if you guys think what they should do. I don't mind going like, do you feel like it's a problem? Be thinking of this, like, why is it happening? What should Square Enix do about it? You probably are talking about this right now and what we can do about it. But let's see here. Alyssa says, as we've discussed before, most of the younger generation is free mobile apps and live service of Minecraft. Yeah, true. It's because parents just gave you a phone, and then it was free entry because parents were like, you can't use my credit card. And they are like, well, we found a loophole around that. We have this game that's free. And then they just started spending their parents' money on skins. Final Fantasy fans have literally never been happy with entry, though. Do you think that's true? Like, do you think like back when it was like, when I say like the golden age of Final Fantasy, I wasn't there, but do you think when Final Fantasy, like, you're probably right, because like Final Fantasy 6, when it comes out, do you think people were like, oh, I'm disappointed with this entry? Or do you think that was like the momentum? I think when people were upset with the Switch is when they went to 7. I think there were a lot of like people You still see them today. They're like 6 is the best. Like they massacred my series when we went to polygonal cyberpunk worlds with 7. So I understand the split, but then they start to garner goodwill through, because I think a lot of Final Fantasy fans of 6 are also fans of 9. I could be wrong. Maybe they don't like it, But at least there was some consensus. I feel like you would get to a point where people say, I like those type of things. Maybe they didn't love the Switch, Sebi is the voice of the purist who believe that they are above. Yeah, they shouldn't. I don't like this. This is what bothers me about Sebi is that he just feels like that, like, people who like the new stuff, their thoughts are invalid. I think it's dumb. It's just gatekeeping. But I think that what he voices is, and when people resonate with that, that's not real. A lot of times people treat him on it like, you're ridiculous. He does engagement stuff and he makes up stuff, or he twists things to make his argument sound right, and then it just lights those people up that follow him for sure. But wait, what's wrong with Aerith, Spencer? I don't know. Did I say something bad about Aerith? Alyssa says, yeah, I got you. As soon as I said Tomb Raider, I knew what you were talking about. Sony wasn't necessarily kid-friendly, but they did have at least a wider range of titles. They just focused on stuff like that sold eventually. Yeah, I mean, what can you do? You have to sell you have to talk about what sells, right? Oh no. Did I lose my spot? Maybe it's a good thing. Sorry. I think you just skipped ahead. Let's see here. Yeah, one of these, Alyssa says, yeah, none of these gaming companies see these sales as a good thing. Even Fortnite laid a ton of people off this week, and I'm sure we saw their books, and they're still raking it in. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sorry, guys. It skipped ahead like a ton. And I don't know how far back I was. I know I'm super behind. Look at all you guys with your cool, like, Twitch emotes with your Final Fantasy stuff. Drumjod, I love them. Very cool. We also got G Mun. Is it Money? I would say there is slop in Roblox, but Roblox itself is not slop. It's actually kind of fun. Right, but like, here's the problem though. Because it's like this endless marketplace of stuff, I know that you can find decent stuff there, but you can also find garbage there, and I don't want like my kids to wade through that. And I'm not going to take the time. I don't think parents do that. I think most parents just say, like, here you go. Here's some Robux. What is it? Roblox bucks or whatever, and they can just spend or do whatever they want in it. So yeah, Pokeslop, we're gotta slop them all. Yeah, Pokemon has struggled, but at least like it still gets those new kids in, right? Drumjudge says, I totally get it. I'm about at the same age. Makes me sad that most of my nephews don't like a single player game at all. Just the standard stuff most kids play with their friends. Yeah, totally. Okay, so when I was talking about my nephew. I feel like you're preaching to the wrong choir, Brother Spencer. You got to tell the normie parents this. Yeah, that's true. Like, make all of you guys, whether you have kids or not, I'm sure that you're the type of people that would have your kids play Final Fantasy. But it's something that it's such a big problem that we can't change. We can't just tell parents not to let their kids have tablets. I mean, it's starting to shift a little bit, but like, here, have this, and then it'll parent you. You'll be quiet. Trust me, I know all about kids that are loud. Javier will tell me to stop screaming at them. I don't scream at my kids. I just did one time and I lost my voice, but they were disobedient. And I was like, come on, you gotta help me out. Yeah, anyway, so Zero Mate says, I'm fine with just keeping 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and never going any further. Okay, see, so like Zero Mate, maybe you're like, these 4 and 6 were like the best SNES ones, right? And 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 was like the peak of the PS2, and then not doing it. But I think a lot of people think like him or her, And I don't think that's a problem. It's just like Square Enix needs to be able to find a way to like move forward, and they're going to make people upset, and maybe that's what they're doing with the Remake series, and maybe I just think Remake series is like a hot button topic because obviously there's expectations going in. It's like, what do I mean by that? Obviously there's, let me switch over here. obviously there are expectations going into the remake series because some people love Final Fantasy VII, and because they're doing something different, you're going to have people that feel alienated that they didn't make it for them, they made it for new people, and they're going to get upset about it. And I don't think that's a problem. I really don't. I think you got to accept it that this is the direction that they're going, and then just take the remake series like on its own merit and see how you feel about it, right? And if you hate it, you hate it. But this is kind of the direction they're going. So if you gripe about it, it's like, okay, you can make yourself known and not buy it, and then they have low sales, and then you can feel like some sort of Schadenfreude. But I don't know. This is Square. Like, they need to like pick a lane and just stick in that direction. They keep switching it up too much. I don't think you can have the luxury of just saying like, we're gonna have a new battle mechanic. We're gonna just try this out. Just like take a system that's working well, and then I say fix your stories, fix your narratives, because then we saw that in Expedition 33. That was a brand new IP with no existing love or this pre-installed fan base, and it just blew up and people loved it. Why? Because it had good characters, it had good story, and a good battle mechanic. All you need. So Final Fantasy, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Get a good battle mechanic. You have lots of those. Just pick one. I think the remake combat is really good. Even the people that don't like the Sebi fans and the people out there like that miss turn-based, like, I don't know if they'll ever go back to turn-based. They're open to it. And if they do, cool. Like, I'd be along for the ride, but I think that would alienate some other people. That'd be like, nah, I'm just not feeling that. But I think what they did with the re-trilogy, they have a good battle system. And I think the people that are purists and are like, oh, I don't like it, I feel like they can still accept that that's good. Like, it's hard to argue against the mechanics. I think the things that they argue with are like the storytelling, the cringy stuff that they say, and how it's not like true to the original. But if like the storytelling was true to the original completely, and it had the same vibe, and it was just with that combat, I don't think they'd have any problems. But I'm like saying they've got a good combat system. Okay, and then you should move on, and now you got to focus on characters and storytelling. And like the re-trilogy is in this such a frustrating spot. Because it could be really good, but it could whiff so hard, and we don't know. And you just kind of have to hold out hope that they know what they're doing. But the more time goes on, the more like I worry, the more Jolie, worries. The more a lot of people worry, and some people were like, "No, it's great. Like, have no issues with it. That's fine." But I think it might divide people again. So yeah, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so slow. Let's see. Normie ones, I mean. So let's just saying, like, yeah, like, why spend $70 on a game you can download a free one for a kid? Yeah, and let them pack. Every once in a while, buy a pack. Totally, I agree. It's true, but we just gotta tell those normie parents to just let their kids play something quality rather than just slop. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna see if I see any new faces. Sorry if I'm skipping over you guys that have been in the chat with me for a while. But Alyssa says Subtext's point is kind of the one I was trying to make on Night's chat the other day. Okay, so you were talking about it with them. Drumjod says I'm totally down for the future of Final Fantasy to be around 30 hours. The mainland story worked great for Expedition 33. I do think that's a good thing. I think if you can get through the critical path quicker and experience the story rather than it being like super long. I think re-trilogy struggles so much because we've waited 7 years to get the conclusion of one story. Let's compare this to like a film trilogy like Lord of the Rings. Let's just pick one of the greatest trilogies ever. This is another unk status because I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. But you have Lord of the Rings. And it's like you watch Fellowship of the Ring, you feel satisfied just having watched Fellowship of the Ring. You obviously they did such a good job of making it a self-contained movie that you feel satisfied, but then you're excited for what's next. I felt like that more in Remake, but it was still like there's some crazy stuff happening in chapter 18 of Remake, right? And they kind of just throw Sephiroth at the end because they need a bad guy to fight, you know? And you're like, okay. I don't think it's as self-contained as like Fellowship or Two Towers or whatever, Return of the King, you know? Then you have Two Towers, and that's a self-contained movie, and it's awesome, right? I think Rebirth is the biggest offender of this, that it's like doesn't feel like a self-contained game. I don't feel like it stands on its own merits. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but I just feel like it struggles to stand on its own with the stuff that they're doing with like the meta narrative. If they pay it off in 3, great. But I don't think it works as a standalone game narratively. I think it's great so many ways with combat and character moments. But this is their problem, right? So yeah, what Drumjaw's saying is like you have 30 hours and you've experienced like all there is for Expedition 33. I mean, you can do more stuff, right? But I think they could learn a little bit from that, you know. I'm just giving it red hair Shanks BB. My dogs are going crazy right now. Hey guys, hey, cut it out. They like we're fighting. Jeez, they're in their crate right now. They're down here with me. Sorry, red hair Shanks BB3 DC. It started losing its identity during Final Fantasy 12, is what you say. Yeah. And a lot of people, and this is like what Sebi's arguing about online right now. And then all the people that are like obsessed with 12, they're like, we got to stop him from saying this. We got to, you know, it's like, I remember when Jolie played 12, I'm like, are you even playing the game? Like some of the same arguments that Sebi's saying. The problem is like, I agree with him a lot of the times, you know, but I don't like the way he does it because he like makes fun of people. I think everyone can enjoy a wide variety of things, you know? So yeah, people thought like it lost its identity with 12, and maybe that's the case. But I think it's a vast departure. One of the arguments I hear online is that Final Fantasy was never the same, right? It was like the turn-based games, and then they introduced like the job system, and then they had like active time battle, and like it's always been different. And it's like, well, games always introduce new mechanics, and I would argue that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would argue that like Final Fantasy like 1 through 10 were essentially turn-based games with, you know, novel and interesting mechanics. I think hardcore Final Fantasy fans, and I'm someone who's not I'm a certified noob, Final Fantasy noob, right? I think that they put too much weight behind that. I think that if you distill it down, it's like these are turn-based games. And then, so it's like you have a history of like, I know that they're different ways to interact with turn-based, but that's what they were, you know? And then 12 totally shifts it, you know? You have, you know, it's still like on a cooldown timer, but it's MMO style, you know, pre-programmed Gambit style. And it's performing the actions that you programmed in, but you're not necessarily like controlling it all, sure, you know? And then you've just like, it's never found its identity since, you know? It's like 12 and then 13 with the paradigm shift and then 15 with its, you know, crazy combat. 15 was so bizarre. I loved it in some ways, and I thought it was so weird in others. And then 16 is obviously different. Skipping through some people. Sorry, guys. I'm not getting to everyone. Arts Fantasy says Square direction really depends on the current CEO. The last guy definitely made things worse for them. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about that, check out Final Fantasy Union's video. It goes through every single CEO that Square Enix has had and Squaresoft. They do a good job of like talking about their priorities and like where they were. And it's interesting to kind of see where Final Fantasy has gone because of that. Javier wanted animations on the PowerPoint. I should have had the text slide in, you know, been all cool. Didn't have time. Mattery6197 says, I think the big difference is that Capcom is absorbing a lot of outside criticism when making their new games. Square is too insular in their development process. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't like. It would be naive to say that like, oh, Capcom's doing everything right, you know, and that like they don't get some of this pushback. I think Toolman in chat is a example of that, right? I'll read what he said. He said Capcom is doing a fantastic marketing with Resident Evil, and the new game is great. The writing is just not there. It's like they let an AI bot write it. Okay, cool. So like the marketing's really good. The characters are enjoyable. Like who doesn't love Leon? But I know that Toolman, and I don't know if you're playing Resident Evil. I'm not going to spoil it, but I haven't played it. It's just like a ton of callbacks and it's like a little bit of Easter eggy like the game. They just have so many references to other Resident Evil games, right? And maybe that's the culmination of getting everybody back on board and then they can like move the series forward now. But if they keep referencing themselves in future games, maybe that's not the right call. Anyway, yeah, good call, Mattery. 6197. No, it skipped again. The chat is forcing me to go here. Let's see. Okay, cool. Drumjaw, Arts Vandy said Final Fantasy X was literally the last time Square Enix lost their way due to their merger with Enix. That's my guess because what happened with the one movie Spirits Within. See, like this is a total. I have no idea what went wrong with like their films, other than you guys know I hate having children. I hate it so much. Oh, it's so bad. So bad, guys. If you love it, it's fine. Just know that I hate it, and it really bothers me every time I think about it. But I haven't even seen Spirits Within, and that was their first one, right? And apparently, like in that Final Fantasy video that I was talking about, that I was referencing in Final Fantasy Union, they talk about how that was that was like very expensive to make. That it cost more than like 7, 8, and 9 combined, or maybe even 10. Like the budgets for that movie, and then marketing that movie, and then it being such a colossal flop. So yeah. Drumjod says there wasn't enough of an online presence and no social media back then, so it's hard to know. Some folks definitely complained about Final Fantasy OG changing things, but I think percentage was smaller than the folks who dislike the modern changes. Okay, so you're talking about the shift from 6 to 7, right? And that's something that we'll never know. And like the internet has like made it possible for niche franchises to get like the support it needs, because like all of us Final Fantasy fans, like this is a Final Fantasy YouTube channel that's dedicated to one series. We're not even like a Square Enix channel. We're like Final Fantasy. Like I don't even play Dragon Quest. I don't know anything about it other than just, what people talk about it. But like the internet has given us that ability to like focus on that. But then when you keep fracturing your niche into other pieces of, and you can't all agree on something, I just feel like everyone fights about it, and I feel like 7 is like the worst. I know that people have complaints about other games, but I'm just like, I just want to play a different Final Fantasy game, because I feel like I've been playing 7 since I started playing Final Fantasy, and I'm like, it'd be interesting to talk about some other ones, right? I know that it's going on right now, but Toolman says Square Enix just needs to commit to making a good game that is approachable. 7 Remake was selling strong at launch. I think the publicity around the confusing ending tanked the long-term interest. And it's so funny because I feel like that's what's cool about it. And I know that sounds dumb because I've never played the OG. And so it's like, how could you know what's cool about the ending of Remake if you haven't played the OG? But just someone who like is interested in games and sees I see Capcom and they're doing the remakes, and I know that Final Fantasy IV Remake, wow, I keep saying that. The Resident Evil remake, like number 4, is different than the original 4, but they're like somewhat true to it, right, Toolman? Tell me if I'm speaking out of line here. But where Final Fantasy takes this huge swing and they're like, we're going to do something totally new. And I'm like, that's cool. Kind of weird. Let's see where you go with that. And I just feel like they haven't gone anywhere with it. So I thought it was cool, but now I'm like, yeah, maybe it's tanking my long-term interest. Alyssa says you should watch the roundtable discussion on Resident Arc at the end of their Final Fantasy 16 podcast with Night Square, Prince Babysill, and Professor Noctis. Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. Do they talk about all the things we love about the ending of 16? I wonder. Drumjod says how recent a video is that. I might have missed that one. Red Hair Shank says ATB was fine and still felt like the turn-based. Yeah, still felt like turn-based. People want stories that don't confuse them, and asking them to wait 8 years to learn about those mysteries just doesn't work with audiences. The attention span isn't that long. I agree. They should have given us answers in frickin' Rebirth, man. What? You'll hear about my rants when we get to our deep dives, but like they didn't give us answers in that game. Some people would argue that they did kind of, and it's like, no, they didn't. Like, I know that we went off on Red and his voice change, but Jolie's argument with Red changing his entire personality and character and his knowledge, right? There's that clip where he says, whispers are arbiters of fate, and he's just talking about how they protect the timeline. And then Barrett's like, well, didn't we destroy fate? And he's like, yeah, we did, but now these whispers are, maybe they're protecting like the new fate. Something, right? And it's just like, okay, well, we killed that, and now they're not going to give us any answers. They're not going to do any sort of like hinting at things that could have changed that did. It's like we're going to follow the same timelines and then just wink and nod at you at the end of the game and say, haha, see, we might have done something different, but maybe we didn't. Wait 4 more years. It's like, okay, you lost me there big time. And like some people like just love it. Like I think it's so weird because the marketing is genius because people just are like, what is it going to be? What are they going to do? Because they won't answer that question and they want that momentum to push, but it makes Rebirth a bad game. I said it. It's a great game in a lot of ways, but it makes it a bad game because you're not getting story right yet. And what Toolman says is true. If you're asking people to wait 8 years to learn the mysteries, doesn't work. You got to give them something. I don't think Rebirth succeeded in that. Sorry, when you engage with nonsense and you start to belittle people, your overall message gets drowned out. Are you talking about Sebi? I don't know. Sorry, when you engage with nonsense and start to belittle people. Yeah, I just don't like, there's no reason. This is the thing about this channel. You can think however you want. You can hate the remake series, and I'm not going to say don't hang out with us. I'll be like, cool. Tell me what you don't like about it. You can love it, and I'll be like, great. Tell me what you like about it, And then when we talk and think critically together as a group of Final Fantasy fans, we can say, this is the stuff that we didn't like, and this is the stuff that we did like. Here's some feedback for the devs that are, you could correct or make better. Not that they're listening to us, but that's like what internet communities are. It's like, it's this like pitchfork mob mentality of the internet where every side has to be like 100% bought in on one side and the other side has to be 100% bought on the other side. And it's like so weird to me. We don't need to agree on everything, you guys. And that's okay. We can still hang out and, but it's just tribal. Everything's tribal these days. Alyssa says Seal made a good point in it about how the future Final Fantasy is whatever new entry sells the best, as happened with 7. People were upset with 6, but then didn't matter because of how 7 and 8 sold. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, they're a company and they're looking for those profits after all. The interesting thing about that though is that you would think that they would have adopted that back then, because if 7 back then, if it sold the most, then you would think every game would be like 7. But then 8's different and 9's different. Those were being made in tandem by different creative people. Like if you, that same video again, Final Fantasy Unit's really good, but it talks about all these different, directors that were over different like creative business units, and they were all in charge of different projects that were happening at the same time. So obviously they would be different. But it was cool because we got a bunch of different projects right in a row because they were making the games in tandem. So, yeah, but now that doesn't happen anymore because, I mean, they are doing it in tandem, but it takes so long to develop a game that, if whatever sells the best, you have to make another one of those. Yeah, sure, but then it's going to take 6 years before you see the next one. Anyway. Alyssa says it's a few years old at this point, but definitely still worth the watch. Oh, she's talking about the ending of 16. Nice. I'm looking at YouTube. You're looking at it. Oh, I thought you said you were watching it right now. Drumjod, you listen to this show. I'm kidding. You can do what you want. I'm so offended. Biggles Triple Deluxe gave me like every emote that he has. Are you just like pasting a bunch of like Aru emotes? Shout out to Aru, everybody. Hey, Aru, great emotes, girl. Yay. Cool. Drumjob found it. Javier says, I don't mind the story setting change of Final Fantasy VII, but I am one of those old gamers who was in love with the peak of the pixel art and really hate the downgrade of polygonal graphics. Gotcha. And that was just like, it was huge at the time when we saw polygonal graphics. Another Tim Rogers quote that is so amazing. You can also watch his review on Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it's hilarious and awesome. But he has this anecdote where he talks about his dad walking in the room and he sees Cloud when he's playing the original Final Fantasy VII. He's like, that guy's got toasters for hands. And it's like true, like the polygonal graphics were so awful. Yeah, Tim Rogers is the best. Anyway, yeah, it was a downgrade and the pixel art does hold up better. But I think but then I also think people have this huge nostalgia love for the pixel art games because they had to go through the crappy polygonal era until we got to like good, way more polygons. The characters actually look good, but I like pixel art. I'm not saying I don't, but like I have a okay. Here's my take. Games like Octopath Traveler and stuff are like amazing, and they do that cool thing with the like HD 2D. But I'm kind of like, I don't know. I know that development is slower or doesn't take as long with those games, but it just kind of feels like that's another thing that you're not seeing with like Capcom. Capcom's going all in on like their new modern Resident Evil series. They're not making pixel versions of those games. They're not doing, they're advancing and they're like, this is who we are. They picked a lane, but like, I feel like Square Enix is like, we want to have the old pixel art games and we want to have the new high, AAA budgets and we want to have the mobile games. It's like, well, what are you trying to do? I know that each company they have to have kind of the foot in every pie, finger in every pie. They're just sticking their feet in pies. But anyway, it just drives me a little bit nuts that like, it just feels like Square still doesn't have that vision. I feel like other companies have had that. But yeah, good point, Javier. Let's see here. Rant cam, let's go! Woo! I don't know about rant cam. I just thought you guys were bored at looking at my awesome Final Fantasy PowerPoint. Toolman says turn-based combat isn't what made Expedition 33 good. It was arguably the weakest aspect of the game. They had a mature and intriguing story that didn't ask the player to wait forever to see. See, like okay, yeah, I haven't played it, so another thing don't trust me on this. This is just me talking. But Expedition 33 has something for everyone though, right? So like, let's say you don't like the turn-based combat, then but the story is compelling and it's moving me forward. So that works for those people, Or let's say you do like the turn-based combat and you're like obsessed with parries and you're like, that feels so cool, and it like the last stand of Expedition 33. I know that like if you're gonna like you're about to die or if you're about to do a team parry or something, it does something like that. Like that's cool because it plays into the narrative and it's this awesome, gimmicky battle mechanic or whatever. I just feel like the battle mechanic RPGs are a tricky thing because like I think RPGs rest on one of the three. Let me explain. You have games. I think Final Fantasy VII rests on its characters. And then like you could argue like the materia system and like the plot are like second to that. Because what has stood the test of time of Final Fantasy VII? Is it the story? I think maybe someone might say that, but I think Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, these are some of the most iconic characters in video games. Sephiroth, right? And it's like, okay, so your characters are just like amazing. Everyone loves them. Everyone knows who they are. They're the most like iconic Final Fantasy characters. That's why, people would be like, what about my girl Terra in 6? Or, or like you go to 10 and you have, I don't know, this is where I'm talking out of my butt here, Tidus and Yuna and Riku, Auron, those guys, Kamari. I only know these people's names because of the figures that Jolie has on her shelves. Yeah, there's like it's their characters, right? But I feel like what Expedition 33 got right is that like none of the three things were too offensive. That like maybe like Toolman's saying is that Expedition 33's like narrative and characters were awesome and it pulled you through, and then the combat was just fine, right? But I don't think it was like grating or friction. I don't think that like people were saying like, oh, I can't I hate this game because I have to play this turn-based game combat. Maybe they're just like, oh, it's cool. And then they love the character and stories. Whereas like 7 Remake, I feel like it is propelled by nostalgia and the characters. I really do. I feel like, okay, I don't know if I should get into this, but I feel like modern Final Fantasy, and this might be to the point of the article that we started with, is fueled by nostalgia, but it's like a fraction of the nostalgia of the community. Because like I never would have played these games had I not been married to Jolie. That's not probably true. I mean, I play RPG, but I knew Final Fantasy. I always knew it existed, but I had like never dipped my toe in it. That's the expression. Dipped my toe like in the water, not in the pie. But I had never like had any desire to play these games because I didn't grow up with a PlayStation. And I didn't play Super Nintendo. So I was like a Zelda kid. That was like my game that was like, I'm going to go on an adventure. I'm going to play Zelda. Right. But Final Fantasy games are like such nostalgia fuel, man. Like, especially now, it's like, oh, I can't wait to like see Cloud. I can't Tifa, my girl. Like, I can't. It's like they just lose their shiz over these characters, right? Like, I feel like people glaze Sephiroth so hard. To me, I think Sephiroth kind of sucks. I do. He makes no sense to me. I've played 2 games and I'm like, who is this guy? And why did he just flip out because he learned something about Genova? The games are not explaining it to me very well. And I think anyone who criticizes me as like a newcomer, like, it totally explains it. I think you're just all bringing in that like nostalgia, or you're like hyping on, or you're hopping on the internet like hive mind, of that niche section of the fandom that's like obsessed with these characters. I know that like that I'm naive and that they're going to explain a ton more, but like right now Sephiroth is stupid to me. I talk about this in one of our videos. Like that, like Rebirth is, they are beating you over the head. They're like, Sephiroth's the bad guy. Do you remember? We talked about it a while ago. But it's like they have to do that because there's like no clear direction in the Remake games. They want you to experience like everything like blown out to a certain proportion. You got to go to Cosmo Canyon, but now Cosmo Canyon has to be this giant canyon and you have to do all these things. And then you kind of get lost because the pacing of the game, this is what Roosevelt was talking about earlier. It's like they should be 30, 40, hours. I beat Rebirth in like 42 hours or something in my first playthrough, and it was a miserable experience because I had to rush through it. I just did the critical path. There was so much story to just get through, but I was doing all this stuff. I mean, like, had the game allowed me to kind of explore and do all these other things and beat the story in about that time, sure. And I'm not like some advocate for games to just be like 12 to 30 hours long. I think there is like a pacing problem in the games, but I'm okay with like giant RPGs that take hundreds of hours if like the game earns it. But I'm ranting. So yeah, Toolman, Expedition 33. I think going back to my initial thought, you got to have all 3 work. You got to have the plot has to make sense. You got to have the characters that are awesome. You got to connect with them, and you got to have a good battle mechanic. So, what's up, Arts of Antes? Okay, super chat. Sephiroth is more annoying than menacing in Remake. Okay, cool. See, that's how you'll get me to talk with the most recent chat. Sorry, I'm so behind. Yeah, Sephiroth is more annoying than menacing. He's just like shows up randomly, and I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know who you are. It's all nostalgia fueled. Like, everyone knows who Sephiroth is because you're supposed to know who Sephiroth is. And they just pluck him, they just plant him in the story in the hope that like it justifies his existence being there. And I don't think it does. I don't think they earned the end fight against Sephiroth in Remake. Even though I love Remake, it's like, okay, all right, we're fighting this guy because he showed up in like Shinra Tower, I guess. And Cloud's got some history with this guy, but we don't really know what. I know there's part 3 is going to talk about it. Like, it will make sense. I can see how they can make sense of it because I'm spoiled on part 3 and I know kind of what happens with Sephiroth. because there's the weird like he's future Sephiroth, and I'm not going to get into the whole argument of like is this the like Sephiroth after Advent Children, or is this the Sephiroth that's just like hanging out in the Northern Crater or whatever, you know? But because they could play it either way, but they're not giving us answers. We just have to go on speculation. Oh well. G Money says they should have titled the Final Fantasy VII remake. It's so misleading. So maybe you're one of the ones that were like bummed about it because they went too far off. You know, you wanted it to be like strictly the remake of 7. Patriot says, hi guys, more people are going over Twitch apparently. Hi. Toolman says turn-based combat isn't what okay, I already read that. I'm stupid. Sorry. Red Hair Shanks says Final Fantasy VII Remake has the best combat, but splitting the remake into 3 parts was a stupid and greedy idea. It's so weird because like I have mixed feelings about that too. Red Hair Shanks. Is that a One Piece reference? See, I just like know a little bit of everything, but I don't know like hardly anything. Shout out to Shanks. Yeah, it's like okay. By splitting it into 3 parts, there's so many issues with it because this is what Toolman was saying, and this is an issue I have too, is that they are expecting us to wait 7-8 years for us to get a conclusion to a story. And then like by them not giving us answers, you know, it's just expecting us to just come along for the ride for so long. And it's like I don't have like I'm 10 years older now, not quite 10, you know, like, but then then part of me is like, well, like they're getting the games out a lot quicker because they're doing the same game. It's just 3 parts. They don't need to remake assets. They are using the same engine, and we're finally getting Final Fantasy games at a good clip, right? We're getting like Final Fantasy 7. So like when you talk about modern AAA development cycles, it is a struggle because you have Final Fantasy 7 Remake 2020. Then you get Rebirth in 24, but early 24, right? And then now we're probably going to get Returnal, whatever they're going to call it. I know that's a PlayStation game. They're going to give that to us in 27. So that's like 3 major, huge, you know, some of the biggest, most content-filled AAA games in 7 years is pretty dang good, right? Yes, they got greedy with making it into 3 parts, but it was like beneficial to the development cycles because they could focus on one thing and then execute on their vision. I like that. I just don't know if their vision's going to pay off. Roosevelt says, in the Final Fantasy VII Remake series was just 17, 18, 19, and they had the same release schedule, I think they would be in a better position than they are now. I have been seeing people complain about that. Yeah, I wonder. I just feel like everyone hates everything, right? Because everyone has something to complain about. Because, like, all right, like, you've got, like, I know I shouldn't even call them, like, I won't even say, whatever. I was going to say Sebi, but, like, let's bring up, like, the purist, like, the old heads that are, like, Final Fantasy peaked at 10, which is fine. If you agree with that, cool, right? But if they came out with 16, 17, and 19 instead of coming out with like remakes part 1 and 2 and then 16, you know, do you think like I don't think people accepted 16 as like a great game. So maybe like 16 hits doesn't land with a lot of people, but then you don't have Remake to fall back on. And then they'd make a 17, and what if it's just as bad as 16 or worse, or they keep flailing with their direction and they don't know what they want to do? I mean, maybe, but the thing that's been positive about the re-trilogy is that they've been able to iterate on something and keep the same vision. This is like the first time in Final Fantasy history where they've been able to say, you know what, for 3 games, we're going to make the same like battle mechanics and just iterate on them. Has that happened before in Final Fantasy? I mean, maybe some OG purists would say, well, that's kind of what happened in the older games when they was just turn-based and they introduced like the materia system, the junction system, or like whatever, you know, espers. But it's fascinating to me because it's like there's so many good things about it, and then there's also so many bad things. It ruins the story and the pacing, but it also does really good things for the gameplay and stuff there. So that makes sense. Roosevelt says Unk is yapping. I'm skipping over a few. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to catch up a little bit. But gosh, I'm so slow. I apologize. How do streamers do this, man? Do they just skip over stuff and then just not read what you guys are saying? Hopefully you guys are reading the chat and then you're able to catch up on, what people are saying. Mad Kaiser 4887 says, I mean, the analogy of Resident Evil 9 Requiem was kind of what DMC 5 was, a culmination of what came before with a few Easter eggs and paid off for the best DMC experience. Reviews and sales speak for themselves. Okay, so Mad Kaiser is saying like this is like a culmination of all the work they've been doing with Resident Evil, and they have Easter eggs and stuff like that. So cool. Red Sarge is here. Morning, y'all. We talked about you earlier. What did we say, Red Sarge? You were saying something about like, oh yeah, you were saying spoilers in the last our last stream because we were going hard against 15 and 16. So sorry, we need to do better about letting you know if we're spoiling stuff. But yeah, so let's see. Javier says the remakes are getting the Final Fantasy controversy also, with the purists want to return to fixed camera angles, so there's no perfect remake. There's always going to be nitpickers. Totally. You're never going to please everybody, but you got to just like commit. And I think the remakes are doing that. That's what I was talking about. Like they've never been able to do this with Final Fantasy. This is the first time they have 3 consecutive games that are all kind of the same game and style and combat system. So, I think if they do well eventually, but then, the purists are like giddy when they see sales numbers and they're like, ha ha ha, Rebirth's not doing as well. It's like, whatever, man. Like, you can hate on it, but like Square Enix needs to find its way, and you can give them their feedback and say you don't like that, and then they'll just keep floundering and trying to find it. Arts Vanty says that movie was the biggest kick in the nuts that they've ever received. You're probably talking about Spirits Within, because we were saying it was just so expensive. Yeah, the soul of Final Fantasy died after Sakaguchi left. They need him back, says Red Hair Shanks. And I've heard that a lot. What's up, Red Sarge? Welcome. You've been here for a while, probably, because I'm super behind. To be fair, Javier, all games are getting controversial pushback, and not all of them are tank sales output, to be fair. Okay, cool. I mean, that can be true. Right, and I don't think... But see, that's the narrative that's going around, that I don't think that the re-trilogy is doing as poorly as people say. Like, the re-trilogy is doing better than Final Fantasy 16. Remake is like at 7-8 million, right? That's pretty dang good. I mean, Square would like them to be doing a lot more. It's like Square wants them to be like God of War Ragnarok or God of War 2018. They want them to be 20 million sellers, and they're just not there yet, right? And who knows if they'll ever will be. But so you have like a franchise where it's like what? You have like 8 million, maybe a little more with the new sales of Switch, and like maybe it'll grow. But then the story's not done yet, right? And then you've got 16 that's around 4-5 million maybe. We don't really know. They stopped talking about it. But then Rebirth is like around 4 million or something, maybe. And then Switch comes out. Maybe it goes up, and then when people are anticipating the third installment and the hype and the marketing cycle starts drumming up, Rebirth is going to sell more. So then people play through it, and they're getting to the point, and then 3. So like, I don't know. Like I think it's hard to ask people to play through that many games and to stay along for the whole ride. But I think once it's all out, like it'll continue to sell. I think the judgment on whether or not they succeeded or not can't be, given yet. So anyway, let's see. Red Sarge says the RE games are tiny games in comparison to a JRPG. Totally. Yeah, it's apples to oranges. We're talking about the Sarge. That they're not the same thing. But it's still interesting to look at how like Capcom has a singular vision. They're like, we're just gonna like revivify the, Resident Evil franchise because it was floundering for so long. Matt Kaiser says you can't make a game that please everybody. If you try, you will please no one and fail. That's what I'm worried about for part 3 ending, by the way. Because if they just use the whispers to be like anything can happen, and then they give the Claris their ending with Aerith, and then the Claudies get their Tifa ending, and then everyone's happy, but then it's like, what is it? Why did we even do this? Because now it doesn't even matter. That'll be interesting from a narrative, trying to please everyone. Arts Vanty says if you were an OG Final Fantasy VII fan, you'd be just as upset as the rest of us, with the few of us being cautiously optimistic about the story's progression. Yeah, I see that take a lot. Toolman says, I think Square Enix is genuinely scared to actually play their hand in part 3. It's going to be a divisive game. I just hope that they swing hard and commit to something. And I don't feel like, I don't know if they will. Like, if you're going to piss off like the purists and like do something totally different, like it makes no sense to set up this like narrative MacGuffin with the whispers and like changing fate and then not changing fate and then saying, will they, won't they at the end of Rebirth, you know? To not do anything drastic. That just seems like that seems crazy in my mind, that you would have all this set up to do nothing new. And then you have all these people arguing, you're like, maybe they use like, it's all in Cloud's head, so like that was just a way to express like what was going on. But you know, having the whispers change fate where Wedge falls out of a building in Remake, and it's not the same thing that happened in the OG, and they're just like, yeah, Cloud was just tripping, dude. You know, I don't know. I think they're obviously setting up something for part 3, but if they kind of do like a dreamy, like it was never really real thing, or the live stream has all possibilities and everyone's happy, it's like, shut up, Square. Grow a pair and pick a freaking lane. Just do it. Matt Kaiser says, understandable, but I mean, both Remake and Rebirth endings have been divisive AF, and that has arguably put pressure on part 3 to make this satisfying ending to tie everything up. Yes. How dare you, Spencer, says Red Sarge. I'm sorry if I said something bad. Rebirth is not a bad game. It's a bad story game, Spencer. Yeah. But I think that because it gets through so much, it becomes a bad game, a bloated game, because there's so much to do, and the story is just like, it never gets anywhere. You could have used Rebirth to answer some of the questions that Remake proposed. It's like, this is something that like, oh, this is new, like, okay, like we're doing something crazy. Zach's alive. Okay, I'm spoiling stuff here now, so if you haven't played through, sorry if I said it already, but yeah, spoilers for Remake and Rebirth. Okay, like they're doing huge things. I never played Crisis Core, but I know what happens at the end of Crisis Core, right? Zach's fate is different in Remake, and it's like, this is a big deal because that's like one of the most gruesome death scenes ever. You know, it doesn't show, but like he's just laying there in the rain, blood everywhere, and it's like, okay, you're doing something crazy. Let's see where this goes. But then Rebirth, they spent the whole time like, let's just follow Robe guys, and they don't even get moving until like chapter 9, 10. And the game's over in 14 chapters. It's like, what did we do all that time? I know that you have to hit the beats of the original, and you have to go have your Anime Beach episode at Costa del Sol, and you got to play Queen's Blood. Like, there's so much game there. I get it, right? But it suffers narratively. So what Javier's saying is true. It's a bad story game, not a bad game. I think there is lots of stuff to enjoy about it, but then it also becomes monotonous because you do the same things in the same area, because you're doing that Ubisoft checklist stuff, and to some people that you love it, but after the third time doing it, you're like, this is just the same thing. You could be using this time more effectively. Ugh. I don't know. Okay. Sorry. Mad Kaiser says, I mean, 13 and 15, for all its flaws, they have actually at least somewhat of a conclusive ending. Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, one sec. Okay. They have a conclusive ending. 16 kind of tried to do that and be ambiguous, like Nier Automata X33, but not great result. Dude, 16 ending sucks. Sucks. We talked about this last time, but 16 was doing a lot of things right, and then like halfway through that game, they just decided to be like, we're a different game. I think the biggest problem with Square Enix is their writer's room. But we'll see. It's like, it's hard because they're taking big swings and they're doing something way more interesting. Like, this is what Toolman says all the time in chat. He's talking about how like at least Final Fantasy is like doing something creatively interesting with its writing. Whether or not they stick the landing or not is to be determined. But with Resident Evil, you just kind of feels like popcorny. Okay, Drumjod says, I like the humanity's tribalistic history has carried over directly to internet arguments. It's true though, and he's got like a little, I think that's Kefka laughing, yeah. But it's true though, right? Like we're so obsessed with being like in our tribes. Like even our tiny little niche fandom is like fractured into its own little things, and we fight each other all day. I don't care if you like Tifa. I don't care if you like Aerith. I don't care if you hate Final Fantasy 12 and you think the Gambit system is dumb. I don't care if you are a purist and you don't like the new stuff. It's like whatever. If you love it, if you hate it, it's cool. We can disagree on it and still coexist. Chocobros GG says, I was checking out the new Dissidia game and my daughter, 10 years old, came to see. She likes gacha games, but it was right in the middle of a cutscene and she lost interest. Final Fantasy just doesn't appeal to kids. Interesting. Yeah. See, I don't know. Like this is interesting. My oldest son is 6, and he's like into the mechanics of things. He likes to know how things work. So he's been watching me play the Metroid games. Now we just played Metroid Prime 4. And he's like obsessed. There's characters in that game and he's like in love with them. Spoilers for Metroid Prime 4. Should I spoil Metroid Prime 4? I don't know. Anyway, he loves these characters and like everyone on the internet hates these guys, right? That was like a big source of contention if you followed any Nintendo news, is that like, oh, like they talk too much. Metroid games are supposed to have nobody. But he played through it with me and was like obsessed with them. And stuff happens to him and he's like, "Are they okay?" Telling me about it. Like it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But I don't know. There's something about Final Fantasy that like I don't know. We're not like sponsored by anyone in Square. Nobody talks to us or cares. But the new Dissidia game looks weird to me, guys. That when that stuff comes out, I like appreciate that they're going for that audience that we talked about. That's not just the unks. That isn't just like the 30-year older. But sometimes I just feel like Square should just lean in and be like, that's not who we are. We're not going to make this thing. But I know that they've made billions of dollars on mobile stuff. So like, how can you ignore it? But I see that stuff and it just feels a little bit cringe. As the young kids say, it feels a bit, I don't know what they say. Cringe is probably old now. But interesting, Chocobros. I like the perspective. So your daughter just noped out, right, when she saw the cutscene. Crazy. That used to be the biggest draw to Final Fantasy. When you saw a cutscene, you're like, how the heck am I playing this game that looks this good? Zage says crazy. I think 16 is the most, is almost 3 years old. Yeah, it's nuts. Red Horse Shank says they split Final Fantasy VII Remake into 3 parts because they want to milk it. I mean, it's marketing itself. We're part of the problem. Drum just says, I feel like Octopath game's biggest issue is that pacing. 16-bit Final Fantasies had a much higher standard of quality for the full game and were well paced. I've never played through. I just played the demo to Octopath Traveler, the first one, and I thought it was cool, but I just, that's another thing. It's like they're doing all these different things. It's like, what are you, Square? I guess they can walk and chew gum at the same time. But Biggles is talking to Red Hair Shanks, saying, yeah, but you also can imagine how long you'd have to wait for it to be a big game, and open world would really reduce. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how much they want to sacrifice to like make. I don't think you're ever going to get an RPG that's going to have pacing that works super well. I mean, I say that, and then Expedition 33, everyone argues that it does. But like, Baldur's Gate is a huge game that you can put 100 hours in, but you just are excited about it the whole way through, right? Maybe it peaks in like Act 1 or 2 or 3. I don't know. Maybe Act 3 is the best, but like, you go on this adventure and you're just enjoying it the whole time. I don't think that's. Like, that was not true for me in Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16, I was really enjoying the story up until, like, halfway point. When they do the big shift and, like, here's the real bad person. I'm like, I don't care. Mad Kaiser says, I mean, Octopath and Team Asano games with their HD 2D games have pretty much made a stand and influence in some way that recent mainline Final Fantasy don't have. Yeah, that's true. I mean, but don't you feel like Square, like, they're happy with Octopath and Team Asano? It's like they're doing stuff and they are like, but I feel like the hype or the love, like people are like, aren't like Square is back because they like did the HD 2D games, I think they're just like, those are great. But where's the real Square? Like, where's the golden era of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Like I don't feel like those games have that oomph. I think they're great games. I'm not arguing that they're not, right? But it's just like it's not putting you on the map of like the greatest of all time. It's like you're great, like that's what you do, Square. You're just one of those like middling developers that make those fun games that are really good that everyone talks about, you know. And I know that's probably like blasphemy to people that like love them, right? Roosevelt says, I feel like every generation has a cutoff point where some of the fondness for the pixel style and others lean more towards the 3D style. Yeah, I do too. And I'm even that way, and I grew up with like the NES. Mad Kaiser says, outside the only modern Square game that outside the only modern Square game that outside of Octopath that still is an evergreen and has high influence is Nier Automata, and it's almost 10 years old. Spencer, play more games. I can't, Roosevelt. I'm a dad. I have responsibilities. And I talk to you guys. What am I doing? I should just be playing games. Fair enough, Roosevelt. Criticism noted. Biggle says Expedition 33 also had certain builds where you don't have to have good reflexes for dodging, blocking, like me. Very cool. That sounds like a flexible, good combat system. Mad Kaiser says, yeah, I think Expedition 33 has to draw for both crowds, the RPG crowd, because it's the RPG and turn-based, but for the other gamers, they're drawn to both great graphics and story, and, well, the rest is history. Yeah, they did it. They figured it out, guys. Rumjod says, I'd say Remake has an amazing combat system going for it as well, plus it gets great customization by default because the materia. Yeah, it has good customization because of the materia, but they need to give us freaking loadouts. If Square Enix ever watches anything that I ever make, I never want to have to switch through like materia, like a giant spreadsheet of like materia orbs ever again and say, oh, how many stars does this one have? This one has 3 stars. And I've been spending like my entire playthrough trying to level up this materia so it's the most powerful it can be. But I got to put that one on Kate Sith because this is a Kate Sith only battle. And then I have to use that. And then where was it again? I don't know. Like, how do I switch this around? They need to figure that shiz out. Rant cam for reals. Like, come on, Square. The materia system is cool, but it's also a convoluted freaking mess. Drives me crazy. I'm sorry. Figure it out. Mad Kaiser says, for me, the combat was the first draw to me when I saw the trailer and then Ben Starr narrating and I thought it was cool. And then the more I hear the narrative cast, I was like, I'm all in. Yeah, I mean, I love the voice acting. I love the cast, and it was going places, but I just feel like it never got there. And so Mad Kaiser says he paid off in the full game, so that's good. I know that there's a lot of 16 like lovers out there. You guys love it. But I do think that there are a lot of people that struggle. Sorry, Jolie just messaged me. Yes, I can come get the baby monitor when I'm done. So Mad Kaiser, I don't know if you've heard my takes on 16. We talk about it in our last stream. So if you want, you can go watch it on YouTube. Our VOD's up. It's the part 1.5 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake playthrough. Me and Jolie just talk about it a lot. But we have some issues. Like, I love 16. Going into it was great. Like, clear motivations for our character. The protagonist was like Clive. There's this mystery around what happened to Joshua and the betrayal. Oh man, like there is so much, like I'm being propelled like by rocket fuel through this game. And then I just feel like they're like, oh, all that stuff we were setting up, it's actually some guy that's like God, and now the world's all weird. So yeah, I don't know. Like I will give more detailed criticism, but that's kind of the gist of it. So Roosevelt says, what's so nostalgic about Final Fantasy 16? I think a big part of like why people bought that game is because of the nostalgia for Final Fantasy, and I think a lot of people didn't like it. That bad to say. I think a lot of people did like it, and it sold really fast, and like that's why it sold so fast so quickly, and then now nobody really cares about it. Like, it's not growing in numbers. It's not continuing to sell by word of mouth or what people say, right? It's like, if you're the Final Fantasy nostalgic people, you bought that game and you either loved it or hated it or whatever, but then you moved on. But like, where you have a game like Expedition 33 that it's a brand new IP, it has nothing like propelling it forward, and you just go in and you're like, this is amazing, and then other people tell you this is amazing. This is an indie developer. Oh my gosh, this is amazing, 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 amazing. Oh, it's selling this many copies. It outsells Final Fantasy, one of the biggest JRPG franchises in the world, right? In a matter of weeks, in 33 days. So yeah, like I do think it's nostalgia fueled. I think Final Fantasy is, and maybe that's not a bad thing. That's kind of like our whole talk about tonight, right? If Final Fantasy is fueled by nostalgia, why not like lean into that? Give the people what they want, you know? And but the problem is the fan base is fractured. So some people would say, give us back what we loved. And then other people would say, no, you know? I don't know if do you think the new fans that they pulled in, if they did a turn-based game, they'd be like, nope, can't do it. I want it to be 16 combat. Maybe. I don't know. But if you tell a freaking good story and the characters rule, I don't think it matters that much. Come on, Square. You can do this. The icon battles is what Mad Kaiser says. Yeah, sure. Like, seeing the summons. People freak out over that. Drum Judge says they might have overdone it with Sephiroth in the remakes, partly to attempt fan service. Yes, that's how I feel. As someone, my first game ever that I ever played was Final Fantasy VII Remake. And they totally overdid it. I'm like, who is this guy? Why is he here? What are his motivations? What are his motivations now? He read some book in a spooky mansion, and now he wants to kill everyone in the world? Okay. I guess I'll just trust the mentally ill protagonist of the party, and everyone will go along with him, and we'll have an adventure. And everyone's like, Final Fantasy VII is the greatest game of all time. And I'm thinking, okay, these characters are cool, but their motivations and what's propelling them through the story makes literally less than 0 sense. It does. It does. And anyone who tells me otherwise, they're wrong, because you already are bringing all the baggage that you have from the original game. You can't separate yourself. You're just like, yep. It all makes sense because I know what happens in the live stream sequence, and I know when Cloud figures it out, you know? So they've got all these theories, and it's like, for us newcomers, you took 7 years to tell a convoluted story and have no idea what the motivations are, other than like, Cloud keeps telling us that we need to kill Sephiroth because of reasons. Okay, Cloud, you're super reliable. We need to trust you. Yes, there's a big twist that I'll find out about. Yes, I know. Thanks for spoiling it for me. Everybody, it's my fault for being a part of the Final Fantasy channel. Javier says, Javier's on Twitch. You shouldn't have done that. Just kidding. You can be on Twitch. But to me, it's not pixel art nostalgia. I feel the art style evolution was cut short by the new thing. That's true. Anytime there's new technology, people are going to chase it. We're dealing with that with AI right now, right? People are like, oh, it's cool. And then everyone's like, this sucks. Starting to swing back around. But you should take that look at the game from Spanish developer, The Game Kitchen, the Blasphemous franchise, is evolution of pixel art that got robbed. I've heard of Blasphemous, Javier. Alyssa says, for me, the issue with Octopath games is grinding the level of the characters more than pacing. When I have time, it's not a big deal, but when I want to push the character stories, complete the game, it hurts. Yeah, that's old. That's like old school mechanics, right? You need to grind to get through the story. Kate Sith date? What? Oh, Arts, man, I'm so behind. I'm just getting to Arts Venti's super chat. Thanks, man. Just bring back Sakaguchi and the gaming would be go nuts. Is he still around? Is he tired? I don't retired. I'm sure he's been. I know that he did that Fantasian thing. Woman says, I hate to sound like the Twitter crowd, but yeah, they've been egging you on about understanding Sephiroth in Remake, and the OG, you don't have to wait 30 years to see his goals. Yeah, that's totally true. Right? Like I'm complaining about this stuff, and it's like, okay, like you're not giving me answers, and everyone's like, well, we have the context of the original to fill in the gaps, whereas new people don't. And I know that that's like a conscious choice. That's it's like, play the OG, Spencer. Stop like torturing yourself. But I want to represent people that will never play the OG. If I do it. Drumjod says, I can play Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 7, not mind random encounters, but in Octopath I quickly get burnt out. Interesting, yeah. Jolie says I skipped a super chat. I should read it. Did I skip a super chat? I didn't think I did. Let me see. No, I read it. I read it a while ago, Joe. You weren't even watching, Jolie. She's backseat moderating from her bed right now while she's asleep. I read it as soon as it came in. I just got to it because I'm behind in chat. But we'll read it again. Arts Vanty's paid $2 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Sephiroth is more annoying than menacing in Remake. Yeah, totally. Okay. Oh well, that just I switched it to see the events, and now I've jumped up like a bajillion. Oh no, Jolie, you've ruined the stream. Now everyone's probably like, just read the most current stuff. Okay, no, I'm catching up. Let's see. Drumjud says for the game with random encounters, I think each trash mob should be over within 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Otherwise, it feels tedious. Yeah, but if it's over in 30 seconds, then it feels like all the work that you're putting in upgrading your characters feels meaningless. It's such a tricky game design thing. You're opening a can of worms, says Javier. You know what happens and how it happens. Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Spencer. I don't know, guys. CDPR, this is Biggle, says we'll be taking a similar approach with Witcher 4, 5, and 6 and are expected to heavily employ asset reuse, get those games out quick. I heard about that. That's actually good. And so this is probably in the conversation when I was talking about how Square Enix has been able to pump out games quicker with the re-trilogy because they are singular focused on this one thing. They're reusing assets and they're not having to make everything from scratch. I like that idea. But then that also kind of pigeonholes you to, like, you can't tell brand new stories, but if The Witcher makes this awesome world and then you just get to see what Ciri does through it, I think that's awesome. Drumjod says, good point. If it weren't for the 7 series, I'd be feeling like Final Fantasy was sinking. Yeah, I love Final Fantasy 7 Remake, says Toolman. The structure of it just annoys me as someone who reads, plays, watches a lot of stories. Totally. Yeah. It's not conducive to like a story, right? Roosevelt says, yes, it's called 1 through 10. It's a good point, Spencer. Alyssa says 16, 17, and 18. But I would ask if re-trilogy didn't sell well and as a whole, will the iteration really matter? That's a good question, Alyssa. I think it will matter for a few reasons because it's giving if it doesn't sell well, so you're making like Baby Seal's argument, right? Where Seal said like they're just going to go with whatever sells the best, right? So if the re-trilogy doesn't sell, then they're going to just restart over. But I don't think that haven't learned anything during this re-trilogy. When you have Final Fantasy as the most talked about thing, as the 5th most talked about game, over like some live service games and some crazy stuff, like, I mean, that's a big deal. And we're talking about Final Fantasy a lot. Whether people hate it or love it, Square Enix is probably happy that we're talking about Final Fantasy, right? I'm doing an entire stream where I'm just some dude who's only played some of the newer games and we're just like going off on Final Fantasy, right? Because someone said that we're old, you know? It just seems like Square Enix grabs those headlines because people are like just hungry for Final Fantasy to either succeed or die, right? So will it matter? Maybe not, but maybe in a way like where they learn that they can get games out at a steady clip and be a part of the conversation, and then like Final Fantasy is back in the mainstream. Like, you know, I do think that's something that has happened. I think with like let's take different periods of Square Enix's like timeline and compare them. So like we have when Remake hits, right? You have the announcement in Final Fantasy, what was it, in 2015 at E3, and people go nuts for the remake. They're so thrilled, you know. But like this is during the time when like I don't know when 13 came out, but you have Final Fantasy like 12, and then like all the 13 stuff goes on, and then the 13 verses just falls apart, and then the troubled development of 15 and all that drama, and then you get, you know, Tabata comes in and finishes the game and puts it out, but then the DLC gets canceled, and it's just like taking forever for like one Final Fantasy game to come out, let alone just have like 16 and Remake and Rebirth coming out. But then when Remake comes out, 2020, they've been working on it. Remake hits, boom. Then you have. I thought it was weird that that you have 2023 with Final Fantasy 16, and then right after it you have Final Fantasy Rebirth. They could have let them breathe a little, I think, but whatever. But then still, it's like Final Fantasy is in the conversation, but a lot of that conversation is you're old and it's not selling very well, you know. But at least it's like it's because of the rapid succession of games that are coming out that it's staying in the conversation. It's no longer like, what are they doing? It's like, okay, they're doing stuff, but are they going to pull it off? And 16's kind of weird because they can't pick a lane. So that's my long answer of like, I think if you're talking about iterating on game design, I think they have metrics and they understand all this stuff about like what combat system, you know, is the most, you know, enjoyed by players. So I think they are learning stuff, and I think this is the first time in the history of Final Fantasy where they've had a chance to get this data, so it's probably new for them. I don't know. I'm just some guy. I don't know what I'm talking about. Drumjod, you're not expected to read out loud and respond to every comment when you've got this much chat activity. I tried to do it when I streamed, and it's unsustainable. See, Drumjod, you're cool. You got all this. You should go stream, and then we'll go to your stream, and you can show me how it's done. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I guess the chat, I'm still learning, guys. So what am I supposed to do? When I'm chatting, I want your comments to be read because I feel like so many chats just kind of go while the streamer is just talking about whatever and they never get recognized. Because I think you guys make the chat or you make the stream better. So I always feel like this obligation to read it. Not in like, I'm having a good time. Like, I think your comments are good. I feel bad skipping over your stuff because you guys are probably more knowledgeable than me. I don't know. Maybe I'm acting too humble here. I'm so humble. But I mean, like, when I go to streams and I mention something in the chat and they don't like talk about me, I just want to hear what they have to think about my comment. Not necessarily that, but I like when people interact with the stream. I know I'm super behind, so maybe there's a balance. Woman says, stop talking with common sense, Spencer. The whispers are just there to confuse and mislead you. This is storytelling 101. I know. This is the same thing we talk about all the time, but we could talk about it forever, right? Yeah, so, and I skipped over your comment, Drumjod, because you told me to. Just kidding. You said I'm probably in the minority, but I could be happy if they gave us multiple endings based on the choices in part 3. Okay, like, this is where me and Jolie totally disagree. And I don't know if it seems like Jolie's in chat now, right? Okay, I'm looking at because I can see OBS. I can see where you guys are currently at. So Jolie's talking to Arts Fonte, which is awesome. Thank you, Arts Fonte, for the super chat. But me and Jolie totally disagree, and so she's here now. She can hear me disagree with her again. Games are an interactive medium, and so you choose options, and if the game allows you to make choices, then obviously your choices should matter. And I'm not saying that Jolie totally disagrees with that. What I am saying is that Jolie thinks that a story is more impactful if you have a singular focus on that story, right? And the story becomes diluted when you give it more choices. She says divorce in chat. Yes, Jolie, sorry. All right, well, I'm going to keep going. If I'm going out, if we're getting divorced, I might as well say what I think. So yeah, a story becomes more diluted if you give it more choices, and then it's like, well, what was the vision, right? So an example of this, back to shipping. Jolie says, like, in the original game, like Final Fantasy VII, there's obviously a love triangle. And Aerith is set up to obviously be a love interest, but then she is spoilers for Final Fantasy VII original. She dies before that love triangle can reach its ultimate conclusion. So, with all this like game mechanics, even though I know it was in the original, but like the kind of like, I'm gonna pick Tifa or Barrett or whoever I want to date or, you know, build affinity with, and then kind of forgetting about Aerith. It's like, well, because you introduce these systems and you're choosing like, oh, I want to ignore Aerith, she's lame. That like lessens the weight and the gravity of what happens to her. right? Now, Final Fantasy VII Remake managed to lessen the gravity of that moment in a whole nother way. They found another way to make it not as impactful, but that's another freaking problem. But as far as like making choices in a game, it does dilute certain things because certain narrative beats will be less impactful if you're trying to pursue another goal and they're trying to be like, but like Aerith isn't here anymore. Isn't that sad? And it's like, well, I didn't really care about her. I was going for Tifa. Or I didn't really care about her. I was like hanging out with the bros. You know what I mean? Like, so I agree with her there. But this is where I disagree. Games have a unique ability to try to tell multiple stories. So back to Drumjod's point, when he says he's probably in the minority, if you give us multiple endings based on our choices and they nail each option, that would be cool. Games rarely do this. My favorite game series of all time is Mass Effect. I love Mass Effect, but they tried to do this, and this was their whole promise, but they botched the ending because they realized that they set up so many choices and they funneled all that stuff back into one or two-ish, three-ish endings, right? But they're all kind of the same. I think maybe Baldur's Gate does a better option of like allowing your choices to affect the outcome. And so games are doing this, and that's why I think Baldur's Gate is so beloved, because you have a game where your choices totally change the outcome of the game. I haven't played many games. Roosevelt's giving me crap for it, right? But like Witcher 3, this is a good example of like making choices in games and having like the outcome affected by your choices, right? Obviously, if you play it multiple times and you kind of pick certain choices, you kind of get a glimpse of like, this is kind of like the canon ending. This is kind of the best ending, you know? Which is cool. The games are the only ones that can do this, right? Where if you watch a film, you don't get to choose your own adventure. So I'm in between. I think if they let you just kind of be like, whatever happens, whatever choices you made, this person's happy and they get to have this person. Like, so like, let's say, okay, this is a hypothetical. Sorry, I'm taking so much time on this, but Aerith doesn't die in part 3, right? Like, let's say that camp gets what they want and there's a way to save her. Okay. Do you think like there's a way to save her, like that would kind of explain the ambiguity around the ending of Rebirth? Because maybe there's a chance and they want to save that for part 3. But then let's say you don't care if she lives or dies, right? Or maybe you do care, but you want her to die to like have that motivation for the party. There's going to be like events that happen throughout the game that are supposed to be plot drivers for the characters, and that's all based off of whether or not this character dies or not, right? I mean, we even see it in Advent Children where Cloud is still like hung up on Aerith. That's like a big moment because they committed to a choice. And it has ramifications throughout all the canon of Final Fantasy VII. By allowing you to have like an option to save her, and by allowing other people to not, then you have to like rewrite every aspect of the story, because then that no longer is a plot driver for a main character. I mean, maybe it isn't if it, like they save her at the end or like whatever. It's like cool. But like there's so many things they have to get right that they usually mess up. So I don't know. Like hopefully they can figure it out. I'm super skeptical. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Anyway, cool. Oh, I'm skipping over stuff. I'm sorry. Arts Vanty saying the live was a huge mistake because they literally does nothing. I love Zach. Totally. Great point, Arts Vanty. Artsy Vanty. Sorry, I'm saying your name wrong. Yeah, it's like they brought him back for what purpose? Nice. Can I rant about some of the stuff I see online on Twitter? When someone just glazes over like, okay, shots fired but not fired, not meaning to do this. Let me be critical for a second, and like I hope you understand that it's like with my perspective. That guy that's like Spidey, I don't know if you've seen him on Twitter, but he's been like replaying through he's been replaying through the original, and now he's doing Crisis Core, right? And like every post that he says, he's like, "This was the best narrative decision ever," and then it's like emotes of him like sobbing and being like, "It's so peak." I really struggle with the like, "It's so peak" stuff. I love the passion, and I'm not here to like yuck your yum, right? But I see that stuff, and then people are just like, "Yes, it's like so peak." I'm like, just critically think for yourself. I'm not saying you have to like rag on the games, but there's some stuff that's objectively terrible storytelling that's going on here, you know? And I feel like I'm a crazy person, and it's like everything about this is so good. So what Artsy Vant, when you say stuff like Zack being alive was a huge mistake, I agree with you. But then other people are like, it makes so sense. Like Cloud and Zack's reunion in Rebirth was so amazing because of Crisis Core. And I'm like, and I have no room to say whether it's bad or not because I haven't played Crisis Core, but I'm married to a wonderful woman who's played all of them, and she's talked to me about some of the stuff, you know, and she kind of feels more like me than maybe some of the glazers do on the internet. Anyway. Teach your kids to watch cutscenes. Yeah, come on. Who was it that had the kid that couldn't watch it? It was like Chocobro, right? Teach your kids to watch cutscenes, says Roosevelt. All right, I'm catching up here. I see Jolie. I'm skipping over her a little bit. Back me up, Eris, or lives or else. She's not dead. Lie to me. I don't like if she lives, great, but like you gotta lean into that. You gotta lean in with your whole heart that she lives. Can't be just like in the rainbow section of the live stream, you know, like the dream like sequence, and as part of it, like when when Biggle sent me the diagram and we went over the diagram, right? You gotta just lean in, right? Yeah. So let's see here. Toolman says, Spencer, your journey of trying to understand Final Fantasy VII is almost the exact same journey I started back in 2016. But you gave in. But you didn't have the remakes to distract you, right? And you played the OG. That's okay. Alyssa says, it's okay, Javier. She becomes a force ghost for the planet. Oh, it's so good. Did it skip ahead? I skipped ahead again. No, sorry. I'm reading. Alyssa says, it feels like Square's issues with Gacha is that their cutscenes are spoken in Japanese. Kids don't want to read, and even they could understand it, but I'm sure they'd mostly skip the cutscenes, go back to gameplay. I know this is controversial, and the subs versus dubs. I will never watch something in Japanese. I will never do it. It just drives me nuts that people think this way. It's okay. I'm sure a lot of you guys do this. And it's fine. But I want to see the art. I want to see what's happening on the screen, and I can't do this. There was this hilarious meme. It's so funny on Twitter the other day. And it was like it was of some guy eating like ramen or noodles or whatever, right? And it said how it feels to, or what it's like to watch anime that's subbed while you're eating ramen or whatever. And so it would be talking in English as he's watching and eating, but then he'd lean down to eat his noodles, and then as soon as his head would go off the screen, his brain, right, it explains it as like he's eating his ramen and he can't see the screen, so all of a sudden all this like Japanese stuff comes in. It's not really Japanese, it's just someone making a silly meme, and then he looks up and then he's looking at the screen again, and then he understands it, so it's in English again at his perspective, and then he goes down to eat again, and then it's so, you know, it starts speaking in Japanese, and like that is why I never will, you know? Unless you're dedicated, and the whole time you don't get distracted by anything else, and you're just locked in and you're reading the subs. Even then, I just don't feel like you can appreciate the art. So anyway, so good point. If they're spoken in Japanese, that would be really off-putting for me to watch the cutscenes. Red Sarge says, you not played the PS1 RPG, Spencer. Final Fantasy 7, 8, you spent most of your time in menus. Okay, cool. See, but like that was archaic game design for like the 1998 and 99 and 2000s. Been 26 years, Red. 26 years. Doom Timeline, what's up? Joshua, Artsy Vanty says Final Fantasy 16 was absolutely great for the first several hours because we were dealing with Oh no, Artsy Vanty, thank you so much. He's the one. See, Jolie, I am reading Artsy Vanty's super chat. Thank you so much. Let's see what he says. He says Zach being alive was my fan fiction, everything I've ever wanted, and when I finally get it, I'm an old boomer that that have made peace with his death. My mind says yes, but my heart says no. This is wrong. Thank you for the super chat, Artsy Vanty. That's so kind. And yes, oh man. Okay, cool. So like that's what you wanted, and so funny because people ask for something that they want. Jelly says yes, read it. Javier says unplug the mic or just stand still like a wood board so the glitch doesn't peak. Oh, am I glitching again? Tell me. Oh, sorry. I'm watching. Tell me if I'm glitching in chat. I'm watching the current chat. If I am, yes, I'm glitching. Okay, I'm gonna try something. Ooh, check. 1, 2. Hello. Read my other comment. Read Jolie. I'm sorry, I'm not there. Read. Does it sound better? He's talking to you about it. It's not audio based. I don't know why this keeps happening, but let me know if it sounds better. You can go back to my Final Fantasy 16 comment when you're done, says RC Vanty. Okay, thank you for reminding where I was. I'm reading what you're saying. You're saying hello, go back to my comment. Just tell me if there's no glitch. Is there a glitch or no glitch? Yes or no? Is it still happening? We'll let you know if it happens again, but so far so good. Okay, cool. I'm going to read Artsy Fancy's Final Fantasy 16 comment. Thank you for telling me, guys. Final Fantasy 16 was absolutely great for the first several hours because we were dealing with humans, tyrants, icons. It felt like street level threat. Then gods started showing up and I was out. Oh, cool. Thanks, guys. Hopefully it hasn't been glitching all stream. I haven't gotten to that part where you say that yet. So, yeah, I totally agree. And this is a problem with all JRPGs. When you can keep the story grounded and it doesn't have to escalate to like a god level threat, just like that more because it's relatable. You can make if the god that you're fighting at the end of a JRPG is like an actual threat but you can relate with him, then it's fine. But most of the time, like that was my biggest criticism of 16, just what you're saying. It's just like Ultima just made like I didn't care about him. I didn't want to beat him. I wasn't like mad at him. Like, yeah, he did bad things, but I was like, I don't even know who you are. And that's kind of like my Sephiroth stuff. Like, I think Sephiroth does a better job of like seeming more villainous than even Ultima did because Sephiroth at least has the luxury of like, you know, you have characters in your party where like Sephiroth kills Tifa's dad and kills your mom. Not your mom, because I'm not Cloud. Self-insert, everyone gets mad at that, but like kills Cloud's mom. You know, Aerith and him are always fighting. Stabs Barrett, you know, in the remake at least. You know, I know that didn't happen in the OG, but like all these things are happening. Like Sephiroth is causing pain, and you want like comeuppance for him, right? Whereas like Ultima is just like, what are you doing here, man? And then Josh was like, we got to stop him, and there's the whole like Sid stuff to kind of like propel you through it, but just shifts gears, and it's like, I don't know. I liked it better when like Clive's mom was the psychopath that you were like, and she was taking over all the kingdoms and stuff. It was messing with everybody. It was messing with Dion. It was messing with Clive. It was messing with Joshua. Much better. Yes, I agree. I haven't played 16, but I don't think I will. It never drew me in. Sorry to say. Spencer, no. Lean into nostalgia, and when it is when you let the franchise die, leaning into nostalgia. I don't know. Is that not what's happening? Maybe I'm dumb, but I do. RC Vanty is talking to Javier. I do that with loads of Final Fantasy games. It doesn't appeal to me. I skip. Spencer must cleanse himself with the original game in order to have a clean experience. I will go back and play OG once the remake trilogy is done because I want to see it. I'll play Crisis Core. I'll play all the like whatever. I will not play Dirge of Cerberus. Maybe I will. Maybe it's a stream. Red Sarge says, I think the devs will change the story somehow. Otherwise, why remake it? Yeah, because it's not a true remake, right? Jolie says, hi, I'm really good at moderating. Sorry. Drive by destruction. Good night. Good night, Jolie. Thank you, Jolie. I liked your super chat comment and wanted to make sure he read it. Thanks for that. He definitely did, but unfortunately made him lose his place in chat. It's totally fine. Jolie can interrupt whenever she wants. It's always a pleasure to see Jolie's name in chat. Good luck, Jolie. Spencer is yapping and yapping more than any other stream, and he says he doesn't think he can keep a stream for hours. It's so weird because I get nervous for streaming. So if you're still around, hey guys, yeah, I don't know. I like get so nervous. I'm like, I don't know. What am I going to talk about, Jolie? She's like, you will have no problem talking to them. But I just feel like I talk about the same things over and over again. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. But yeah, no worries. It takes time to reading chat. I love the fan engagement. Awesome. Thanks, Artsy Vanty. And thanks for super chats. You know, I just like when people, I don't know, this is going to sound dumb, but streamers, if you're just sitting there and you're listening to a streamer and if you're not engaging with chat, then like, why are you streaming? Just make a YouTube video and let people watch it and then talk to people in the comments. The cool thing about streaming is that like we can interact. If you show up live, like you deserve to at least interact with me. And I know I've skipped over a ton of comments and I feel bad about it, but yeah, I don't know. I just like to get to them. And I know it's like, but then I've kind of lost the plot because I'm just been trying to get to the bottom and you guys are like, well, he's totally behind. Oftentimes, Patriots fan, aka Alyssa, will be like, everyone stop so he can catch up, you know? But that's just kind of how I feel. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't make for like good content. I know a lot of times like they become VODs later and then everyone's like, why am I going to watch Spencer just read chat forever? But I don't know. I think you guys bring up good conversation topics where we can expand upon like what we're already talking on. Anyway, cool. Drumjod says, I totally know the feeling. It's just as your stream continues to grow, it'll become impossible to keep up with chat. The engagement is great and it's ultimately completely up to you. That makes sense. I don't know. Like I kind of treat it like I don't like I don't know if like it will grow. I know that sounds bad. Jolie's like, she gave me the keys to the channel. She lets me stream on this, and then don't say it won't grow. I mean, I appreciate that you guys show up. I feel overwhelmed sometimes that you guys want to come hang out. But yeah, so I want to make streams like I want to engage with the audience. I want to do a call-in show. I really do. I think if people want to, then we could hear your voice, and you don't have to be nervous because I'm always like I'm nervous, but we could just chat about it, and then you get to hear someone else's perspective rather than just mine all the time, you know, or Jolie's. So Jolie says divorce. She threatened divorce because I got mad. I'm siding with you both, says Artsy Vanty. Wait for Friday when Jolie Hales is here. Yeah, she will be. Remarried, laugh out loud. I like the story to be focused as intended, says Artsy Vanty. Toolman says, there's a love triangle? Obviously, this guy never played the OG. Yep, I don't know what I'm talking about. But you can't pin Cloud with that dead girl. She's dead. She dies. No. Laugh at Harvard. Aerith lives or else. I'm always with you, always and forever. She's back. It's okay, Javier. She becomes a force ghost for the planet. Okay, yeah. Spencer, your journey of trying to... Okay, I remember reading this, so I'm back up. Back me up. Aerith lives or else. Tell me she's not dead. Lie to me. Laugh out loud. Feels like games with a self-insert character should follow the choice narrative. That's a good point, actually. That's very, very good point. And this is why people who like get mad at other people for saying that Cloud is not a self-insert character, it's like, then why do you let me make decisions for him? Because I know it's like people would argue, well, then you have like Geralt of Rivia, and he's not a self-insert character, but he kind of is. If they give you the ability to make choices for him, then a part of you is that person, right? Because they no longer have free will. You do. You're controlling this person, right? Yes, you're going on like their story, and then maybe like, but anyone who plays Witcher 3 isn't saying like, I chose to go with Yennefer, or I chose to go with, I can't think of her name, the redhead, Triss, you know, or I chose to do this with the king, or I chose to do this, or whatever, like, you know, the ending or whatever I got. Like, yes, I know that it's Geralt, but like, Mass Effect is still Shepard. It's just very like you can design your own character or you can have the preset one, but it's like I still felt like I was that character. It's more extreme in Mass Effect, obviously. They want it to feel like a insert character. But Cloud, they shouldn't allow you to make choices to this extent if you don't want if he shouldn't be considered a self-insert character. Good point, Artsy Vanty. So many good points. Alyssa says, but you only learn about that in a book that they may or may not translate for fans, and they'll just retcon it in a new trilogy of video games. Oh, isn't that so depressing? Yes. This is another terrible, huge problem about Square Enix. But you only learn about that in a book that they may or may not translate for fans, and they'll just retcon it in a new trilogy of games. Oh, yes. I'm finally getting to Jolie's comment. She says, if they offer gamer choice that affect endings, the endings have to be good. I fear Final Fantasy VII Remake is already struggling with one story. How could they handle more than that? I agree with you. You're so smart and talented. Such a good writer. I love you. Good job, Jolie. RC Vanty says, when it comes to Final Fantasy VII, Cloud is an established character and he should have his own choice. Yeah. Biggles Aerith lives or else. Haha. They can't, Jolie. Also, hi, says Alyssa. Very fun. Lie to me, Square. Tell me Aerith lives. Laugh out loud. But we crash and burn together. Chocobro says the party needs motivation. I'm sorry. Stabs Aerith once and for all. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is. I know that's like a clunky. It's not a clunky story moment if, like, the death is, impactful. Like, I haven't played the OG, so I'm talking out of my butt again. But, like, after Aerith dies, it's like she can never be in your party again. Games are so much more intimate, right? I already feel this way in whatever part 3 is, because I love using Aerith in my party. The one thing about gaming is that, like, you follow them in the story, but you also get to, like, play as them. And when they're removed from the party because of a death, then you're like, your heart aches, you're sad about, like, what's happening for the characters and the story, but then you're also sad that you can no longer use magnify materia and nuke everyone from orbit with her, like, her arcane ward that she places on the ground, and she gets to, like, hit people twice and then hit everyone in her vicinity. It's just like so many things about losing Aerith is sad. And yeah, that kind of made me seem heartless because I'm like, I'm just losing, like, your OP-ness. Oh, sorry, that sounded bad. Her OP, like, overpoweredness. Oh, stream flubs. Very funny. You've made it this far, so you get one of those. But yes. Yes, so yeah, I do love Aerith in many ways, and it's a bummer that we won't get her. But that's the cool thing about games, is that they can make you feel more attached to a character than they can in a book or a film. In my mind, Spencer, the only reason to make her fate obscure at the end of Rebirth is that they intend to get funky with it in part 3. Yes. Why would they do this? Like, okay. Spoilers for Rebirth. Spoilers for Remake. Spoilers for potential spoilers for Remake part 3. Okay, if they are not planning on doing something with Aerith, death or not death at the end of Rebirth, then why even do that? It's only... Okay, there's a couple options. It's only to mess with the OG players' heads that are like, that she dies, so they're, like, trying to bait you on to be like, something could happen in part 3. And if they don't, then it's like... Or, like, Cloud's mental state until he figures out who he is and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, Cloud was the only one who witnessed all that stuff that was, like, not possible. Everyone else, from their perspective, she dead, But so that's like a way to hit home that Cloud was crazy for us newbies, where we're like, we don't know what happened, and then they have that big reveal in the live stream or whatever. I don't know when it happened. Like, I act like I know when it happens. I have no idea when it happens. Right? But, like, so Cloud is not well, and he finally figures out, and then we have that moment where we realize Aerith is dead, and then it's like, okay, that's impactful. But I still feel like it's like you're saving an impactful story moment for a twist in the later game, and you're making us wait 3.5 years to get that. Seems kind of not great. I think Toolman's right. I think that there are some shenanigans going on, and like they should get funky with it, because it's like they've it's like they've laid it all out. This is a bad analogy, but like they've set it's like a 3-course meal, or they've just placed the food on the table, and they're like, hey, like we're setting it up, we're all about to eat it, and then you shift to a new table, and then you go back to something that's totally different. It's like, well, what's this all about? Why aren't we gonna eat? Aren't you getting it already for this thing to happen? That was a bad analogy, but you get it. You get what I'm saying. Javier says Wreck-It Ralph is keeping me alive in the belief that Aerith is alive. I remember seeing that. And even I, who had never played a Final Fantasy game, when I saw Wreck-It Ralph, knew what that meant. Multiple endings is the safest choice at this point. Yeah, Biggles, but that's the safest point for you to have Aerith live, right? Rant. Toolman says this might be the rantiest rant cam we've ever gotten, and I'm here for it. I don't know. Maybe you guys are like, I said penis, so I'm gonna get banned from from the YouTubes and chats and the Twitches. This careful, Spencer. You move the cable and glitchy static sound. Oh, okay. Sorry. Now I'm catching up to that. Maybe that was okay. Hopefully it's good now. I'm catching up to you guys talking about it, so this is when my audio glitched out. All right. Red Sarge says, Did she just die? Laugh out loud. I'm sorry if I'm like, it's a problem since past stream. Don't worry. Okay. Drumjod, I'm relieved that the static wasn't just my headphones dying. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, hopefully it's fixed now. It's happened a couple times, so I don't want that to keep happening. I smack some of the microphones, but it usually goes away when I turn off this little device that allows us to stream. So anyway, at least we know the audio issue isn't the cause of Jolie's stream. Yeah, it's just here, not the space heater. And Zach, okay, cool. Unplug the mic. Not audio based. Sounds good for now. Okay, cool. Ultima. Okay, 15 minutes ago. Arts Vandy says, that's my okay, that's when Artsy Vandy told me to go back and talk about his Final Fantasy 16 comment, and I'm finally backed up to that. That was my main problem with Final Fantasy 15 as well. I was more excited with fighting an empire and stealing back the crystal. Now we're dealing with the eternal darkness. Dude, Artsy Vanty, you should just hang out with us because you have the same takes that me and Jolie have. It's like, this is why I love Mass Effect so much. I love Mass Effect 1 because Saren is like the best villain. He's consistent throughout. It's like he pisses you off. Like literally everyone trusts Saren and doesn't trust you, but you have like this perspective that nobody else has where you get to see Saren do these awful evil things and he treats you like garbage, and you get to see it through Anderson's eyes. I don't know if you guys know who I'm even talking about, but yeah, Saren is awesome and he's such a good villain. And it's so good throughout. Whereas, like, I haven't played a Final Fantasy game with a villain that's, like, that good. I don't know. Maybe there's some good villains out there. I need to play more. Kefka seems to be up there. I haven't played 16, but... Or, sorry, 6. Alyssa says he might have actually pulled on the cable mid-rant, and that where it started. It's good. We'll take note and see when the audio... I'll look at this and see when it started, so maybe we can identify the issue. My take on Zack is that in Rebirth, Sephiroth is trying to make sure his original plan isn't foiled like in the OG. So for that to happen, Sephiroth needs to change events as much as possible. Yeah, I mean, this is like the whole future Sephiroth thing, right? Yeah, totally true. But it's... I don't know. Like, you know, it's like if Sephiroth... But then that just seems like Sephiroth is flailing. It's like, well, we need to just, like, let all the people that died, we need to make them live, and hopefully, like, it'll work out for me in the end. It's still... His motivations don't make sense, right? So, you say, thus, Zack ends up being in the story. Yeah, and he does nothing. So, okay. Yeah, I get it. I see what you're saying, Sage, but I still feel like it goes nowhere. Dirge is currently in Ever Crisis as much a much nicer way to consume it. That's what I heard. Dirge Service stream would be a 90% rant camp. That's what you guys are here for, right? The problem is it's like getting through those games without, I chose Triss Marigold, not Geralt. I did. Here's my take with Triss and the shipping wars in Witcher. Yennefer just like treats you like you're her spoiled like brat son, and she acts like a mom. It's like I'm not attracted to that. Don't talk to me like I'm like this little boy. Triss treats you like an adult human person, and I don't care what history there is with Yennefer, because obviously you guys know I like to jump in games at the wrong points. I didn't play Witcher 1 or 2. Anyway, Geralt in Witcher 3 is 100% a self-insert character. The games are not the books. They are separate. Okay, cool. Don't try to win Jolie. It's too late. Divorce. Yes, I said O-O-P. Yes. Patriots fan, this is Alyssa saying, nah, who played the OG were absolutely upset about that. Aerith will still be playable in Rebaked. Mark my words. This is not the Final Fantasy VII OG. Stop trying to force it in the same game. Javier has just been asking for Aerith to live for the past, hour. Wait, I lost my healer? For real? I spent 200 hours building her up and slotting in all her materia and getting all her staffs? Yeah, that's going to suck. And it does feel bad. But if they lean into the choice, that's an emotion that the game evokes from you rather than just saying, no, you can have her. She's totally going to be playable on Remake, says Alyssa. Thank you for backing me up, Alyssa. Probably in the live stream final battle. Well, she comes back in the end of Rebirth, so it doesn't matter. Oh my gosh! Oh, if you're here this long, then you know that, Rebirth does everything wrong. They're like, will they, won't they? Will they, won't they? Is she alive? Is she not alive? Oh, you know what? Cloud thinks that maybe he blocked and parried Sephiroth's attack, and then everyone else is sad about it. But then she fights with you in the final battle. So what does it matter? It was in Cloud's head, and he's psycho. He's a crazy person. Oh, man. Square, what are you doing? Crazy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, she'll be playable in the live stream battle because whatever, that's what happened in the last game. So why not do the same thing? But she's 100% going to be playable again. That they made Zack playable at the very end of Rebirth. Te cubra, hermano. Gracias, hermana. Glitch is gone. You are fine. Cool. I just read out some Spanish slurs. I apologize. Kidding. That's not true. No veo la ahora. Not ahora, just hora de que Spencer intente leer esto. Lo tiene. See, I'm so dedicated. I'm reading the Spanish that I don't understand and can't pronounce. That's how bad I am about having to read all the chat. Lo tiene que leer es un stream internacional. Ha ha ha. Ja 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 ja. Welcome to the family, Artsy Vanty. Good grief, that'd be an honor. I chose Triss. Good grief, what did I miss something? Welcome to the family. I'm so welcome back, Artsy Vanty. Or welcome to family. You're totally welcome here. You rule. Preach Spencer, Triss for the win. I really can't wait for the chapter 14 analysis with Jolie and Ernest. Artsy Vanty says, I legit feel like Remake and Rebirth were hardcore shipping Cloud with Tifa. Yeah, but see, they let you choose. This is the funny thing about the argument with the shippers online, where they're like, Tifa and Cloud kissed. In your game, they did. They didn't kiss in my game. But in your game, the one that you played, not the game, not the ending or not the date that I got, they only held hands and cuddled. So obviously, Aerith sucks. This is okay. The funniest thing about the conversation that we've been having about 70% of US Final Fantasy VII Rebirth players were older than 30. Either A, the shippers are a bunch of 40-year-old men that are fighting over these fictional characters that don't matter. And it's just a preference. Or it's like people that have never played the games and they're just the young audience and they're here just to like make fun of each other. Oh my gosh, it's so dumb. So dumb. Oh my gosh, that's so funny to me. Anyway, okay. So maybe Artsy Vanity, maybe that's why they just wanted to ship. I don't like. It's like they want you to have choices because the game gives you choices. I didn't ship Tifa in my playthrough. I shipped the game shipped Sid, Kate Sith, and Vincent Valentine in my game. Oh, that's funny. Yep, the rebirth is wacky, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a romp. Yeah. It's fun and it's a good time. Like, I am so excited for part 3. This is like the critical thinking I want everyone to have when we come to a channel, because I've been complaining about a lot of this game and a lot of what Final Fantasy has become or what it is and where it should go and what they should do. But it's okay. Like, we can all consume it in our own way and we can talk about it, and that still can be true, and I can still be super excited for part 3. They gave them too many spicy scenes together. Oh, I see what you're saying. So like they kissed or whatever. I don't care, dude. This is news flash for you, dude. I'm married to a beautiful woman and I have 3 children, and some of the most romantic scenes are not when they're just kissing, because kissing's great, guys. It is. But there's some moments in Rebirth when you're like, that's true love, and that has nothing to do with sucking face. Just tell you that much. Alyssa says, I can't wait for Ernest's take on 14. Oh, if Ernest ever finishes the game. Let's hope he does. Que suerte. What's this voodoo language, says RC Vanti. You're reading Spanish with a Lithuanian accent. I lived in Lithuania for years, so. Congrats on catch up with us, Spencer. I noticed that. Haha. Cloud went on all 5 dates that night, Spencer. Come on. Choices are an illusion. You're right. He just was with everyone. Which is funny too, because our big argument with Red in the past, videos that we've released, Red like gives a very important, detailed conversation about like why he can't like experience the whispers anymore, or he doesn't see the future, and that's just locked behind whether or not you romanced Red, or not romanced, or whatever, you had the affinity with him. It's like, okay, we'll just throw that in a scene that no one ever sees. Because everybody wants to date the dog. Oh, you're right, Toolman. What about the Gongaga scene? Are you talking about the Gongaga scene where they're just in the bedroom and they almost kiss or like whatever? It's like, yeah. And then I get blasted on Twitter because I'm like, that's weird, because like Cloud literally just tried to kill her, and they're like, you don't get it, because Tifa understands Cloud to like a molecular level. They grew up next door to each other. They are like the same person. And so like obviously Tifa understands that when Cloud tried to chop her in half, it was because Sephiroth was in control and he was the one that was gaslighting her. Duh. I'm going so bad right now. It's late. So it's like, yes, I understand those things, you guys. But it's still weird that like it doesn't, that it's like, oh, I don't know. It's still weird to me that like, oh, you guys just go so hard for this thing. It's like, yes, Cloud, everyone should be mad at Cloud, and everyone gets mad at me because I single out Tifa. It's like, don't criticize Tifa because everyone in the party, my favorite complaint from the Claudies are like when they say, or when they say, you can't, well, Aerith is the one that should be telling Cloud, like, should be stopping Cloud with his, like, mental illness. And I'm like, why? Didn't he just meet Aerith, like, a few days ago? Why is she the one that should be responsible to tell Cloud that he's, like, a crazy person, Wouldn't it be logical that the kid she grew up with, down, like, across, I don't know if they're next door neighbors or they grew up in the same town, whatever, that you're like, some of the stuff he's saying isn't really happening, But then they like freak out. Like, don't blame it all on her. Like the whole party's like culpable or whatever. It's like, yes, they are. They're all crazy. They're all crazy for following this guy who's mentally unwell, and he has a giant sword and almost kills people around him all the time. And they just go on this adventure with no plot driver because nobody knows what Sephiroth is or what he's doing. And we're just supposed to be like, okay, this is great. Like, let's follow Cloud around the world because he obviously has it figured out. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. Thank you, Alyssa, for the super chat. Another excellent stream. Bravo. Are you like, Alyssa's like, I'm leaving. I haven't even finished the stream. And she's like, I'm at that point where I'm just like, I'm crashing out right now. Sorry, guys. Thank you so much for the super chat, Alyssa. You're so nice. Very, very generous. But yeah, it's just like so funny to me. And this isn't like I'm not trying to be Sebby here where I'm making fun of people who think this way. Obviously the characters, like everyone's passionate about this game and they've read into it, but I'm like this newcomer, I'm like, the story doesn't really make a lot of sense and we're just kind of going on this thing. So I agree with you. It's kind of a romp that we're just kind of having fun and letting it, letting the story take us where we may. No one should be following Cloud. No one should be listening to a word this guy says. Oh man. Anyway, so let's see. You got what about that Gongaga scene? Yeah, RC Van, I told you. I'm like, yeah, it's there, but I mean, like, cool. Like Tifa and Cloud, maybe they end up together, and that's cool. Sure. In some other person's game, they let you choose. They're probably gonna like. I think Tifa is set up to be like the girl that's there that helps Cloud get through his hard time, but like Aerith is the one that got away. That's how I see it. Maybe you disagree. Cool. They're staring intimately at each other, says Heartsy Mantic. Yeah, that's fine. Aerith and Cloud stare intimately at each other when she's at the River of Lights and she needs that motivation and they have that like lock on. I'm like, that's more intimate than anything Tifa and Cloud ever did. Everyone's like, you're so dumb, Spencer. 5 out of 10, Spencer. What did I get 5 out of 10 for? Thanks, Alyssa. Laugh out loud. So true. 40-plus-year-olds fight over ships. Okay, we're back to that. Yeah, it's like they're the average age. That means that like there are people that are in their 50s and 60s that are shippers, guys. Do you just think about that? They're outliers maybe, but they're still in the. You know that they're fighting for these girls. Toolman says, I just hope the guys know that everything I didn't like in Rebirth was fake and only there to trick people. Yeah. I can't wait for part 3 to be over. I can move on. Biggles' life is like in limbo. Do you realize what you're doing, Square Enix? You are literally causing Bigglesworth to have like 27 different accounts, and he goes on all these streams and he preaches from the rooftops that Aerith will survive. He doesn't know, and so he's just trapped in this perpetual loop. Free him from his misery. Javier says, haha, sucking face. Yeah. Chapter 12 deep dive part 7 video. It kind of feels like that. Yeah. That's when we'll get to it, guys. Toolman says, what if Ernest finishes the game and understands the ending completely? He could be the Lisan Al Gaib. I got the Doom reference. Lisan Al Gaib. The funny thing about Ernest, and that like most people don't know, is like, I don't know if you've noticed, but Ernest will say some things that are like totally off base. Like in the last, Jolie left this in. Jolie usually cuts this stuff out. She's the one editing it. But like Ernest has some really good takes, but he's flying by the seat of his pants most of the time, right? He does research and he like comes in with like a few things, but as he's playing it, Jolie will be like, did you get that from Reddit or did you did outside research? Like, what do you think, Ernest, And sometimes he just like goes for it and it's like, okay. Like in the last episode, he was like, well, what did he say? He said, well, Red's voice is like really high, like Marty McFly. And then all of a sudden we were like, he also did the moonwalk in chapter 3. And then it's like, and then Jolie was like teasing him like, moonwalk, Michael Jackson, like, Let's be real. But then Ernest would not drop it. He was like, you know what? That's kind of funny. Like maybe he is Michael Jackson. And we're like, Ernest, no, it's not Michael Jackson, right? Oh, it's so funny to me. Obviously not Michael Jackson. Very funny. But so Ernest just kind of flies by the seat of his pants. He has some like really good takes, but I think he ends up there accidentally. So yes, if he understands it completely, I will shout like Lisa Nagaib. I will freak out like he's the chosen one. Oh, so funny. Oh, okay, haha. The moment Spencer is talking about is when Cloud stares Barrett in the eyes and tenderly says, I mean it, man. Dude, that is romantic. That is so good. That's one of the best character moments in Rebirth. And it's so good because it's like showing that like their friendship is totally blossomed and now they're like have that moment together. That is romantic. Choco Bros gets it. This is too funny. Okay, that scene was pretty wild after Cloud tried to kill her. I get it. Yeah. Realistically, it doesn't make sense. I mean, like it does because she understands that he was under Sephiroth's he was under Sephiroth's control, but it's still funny to me. I only criticize Tifa there because it seems like she doesn't even tell everyone else that Cloud attacked her. Yeah, that's true. That's true because nobody knows what happened except for her. They're like, "How did you fall into the water, Tifa?" I don't want to talk about it. It's fine. Just let me just stay in the room with the guy that did this to me. Zage, the funniest outcome would be that part 3 drops and Ernest isn't done with Rebirth. He'll finish it, but you know the thing is, he'll finish it when we finish the deep dive series. So if we don't finish the deep dive series before part 3 comes out, then he will not finish it before then. Another excellent stream, bravo. Thank you so much for the super chat again, Alyssa. Preach, Spencer, preach. Make it make sense, Square. My defense for them keeping Cloud around, he's got a big sword and can land his big hits on big monsters. That's like what this game boils down to. And I know that like I'm including myself in this. Like, yes, like Jolie and I have spent weeks of our lives, maybe even more than that, discussing this game, but really it comes down to like this silly anime of a guy who has a big sword and chops things and his wacky adventure. You know what I mean? But that's the cool thing about art is that like it can be absurd, and like this is the criticism I have against Sebi and all the people that hate this. It's like you guys can sit there and be like, this thing sucks and you guys are weird for liking like the Disneyfied version or whatever. It's like, but we're like our reactions and like what we're getting from this game, it's real. Like we're experiencing it, and you know, it's fun to go along this ride. It's a great time, you know? And if you don't jive with it, that's okay, but you don't need to come over and say that my experience with the game is bad because you didn't like it. So yes, Artsy Vanty, good call. Laugh out loud. Nah, I'm not leaving, says Alyssa. You were trying to wrap it up. She's like, great stream, everybody go home. Spencer's getting punchy, says Jolie. Cloud is still a mercenary. They need him. Thanks, Alyssa, for sure. Yeah, I get that. But like, do they need Cloud? Because obviously, when I take, can you take Cloud of the party? I don't even know. Can you be like a Kate Sith, Aerith, Red main? I think you can, right? I just haven't played it for a while. Like Cloud is like his justification for being in the party is that he was the mercenary, but that was when they were going after Shinra. Now, Cloud is the main driver, and the mercenary is now the leader, which is so funny, right? Obviously, they set up things. It's like, well, we need to save the planet from this guy, and Aerith clues you into that at the end of Remake. We got to stop this. But then everyone listens to Cloud after that. It's like the mercenary that we hired that's like kind of a douchebag. That's who we need to follow. Not very good, writers. Not very good. But yeah, don't listen to him ever again. Exactly, Jolie, says Alyssa. Nah, no problem, Jolie. Can't wait for chapter 2 of Remake on Friday with you guys. Oh, it's gonna be fun. Spencer, stop repeating what the developers clearly intended. Cloud only has ever loved Vincent and no one else ever, because that's how humans operate. That's how he was in my game. He was like sitting there all sultry in that Ferris wheel, playing aloof, playing hard to get for Cloud. Well, they locked eyes across while Kate Sith and Sid were doing something. Who knows what? Bill says they can alienate 50% of the fan base. That's what will happen if one if there is one ending, sorry, it's true. I don't believe that though. I don't think 50% of the fan base says Aerith is the what should happen, and that 50% is Tifa. I think that's in the shipping world, sure. But I think a lot of people just don't care and they'll just follow the story. Unfortunately for you, Bickles. But I think less people are involved with that. 5 out of 10 for your pronunciation of the Spanish. Oh, I should have picked up on that. I'm getting better. Because I was a 3 out of 10. So yeah, give him a 7 out of 10 just because the Lithuanian sexy accent. My Lithuanian, dude, that's so funny. I don't even speak Lithuanian anymore. It's been 20 years. Far better than me. The MJ connection was wild. Laugh out loud, so funny. I mean, it was funny, but like that's the funny thing, Sage, is that he believed it. You guys, sometimes you think that Ernest is joking, but he's like 100% serious. Oh, soy. This is where I'm gonna shatter my terrible Spanish score. 7 out of 10. Soy demasiado Blanca. Laugh out loud. Spencer and Jolie will have played Rebirth 3 times before Ernest finishes the first. Grumjud says, I have to agree. Rebirth often demands a higher than normal suspension of disbelief. As an OG fan, I just feel fortunate I've been able to love the game despite that kind of stuff. Totally. And I'm okay with that. Like, this is the thing, like you can criticize it for like some of the cringy parts, but like I think it makes it endearing. And if you're not along for the ride, like a part of you has to, like you said, suspend a little, the suspension of disbelief has to be part of the equation. Because if it's not, then yeah, there's going to be things that trip you up. But it's just like, it's a fun time. Get lost with these silly characters and have a great time. I agree. Javier says, I think Cloud is the strongest asset from the party, in spite his mental issues. Is he, though? I think they could overcome every challenge without him. I do. They show him, like, flanking swords with Sephiroth at the end, but, who's to say that Aerith couldn't go toe-to-toe with Sephiroth, right? They're supposed to be like these cosmic beings that can both fight each other. Barrett just shoots him. Come on. Can't block all the bullets. This is why the remake series is a mistake. The shippers have risen again. Were they living in the swamps before, and then they came out and they were like, finally is our time. Like we've been biding our time for 30 years and now we can come back. No, I totally believe Ernest believes what he's saying, says Alyssa. He's got too straight of a face when he says it. It's true. Jolie will cut to him if you notice. It's so funny. Ernest is like, he's totally locked in and serious. And we always try to get a rise out of him. That's why Jolie always celebrates whenever we can make Ernest laugh. Because we'll be saying something and Jolie and I are just like busting up. And then it cuts to Ernest and he's just like, it's so, we're like, Ernest, come on, man. You never he doesn't give us any feedback, so we never know if he thinks we're funny. We probably just is like annoyed with us. I was not present during the original release of 97, but I can only imagine how the shipping war was back then. Gotcha. Coolman says, Rebirth leans in close to you and whispers, please, just trust me. No, we got to do it in the Sephiroth voice. Hey, Cloud, please, just trust me. Also, I need $70. There you go. That's the Sephiroth. No smirking or sarcasm or anything that hints he's joking with his theories, which make them better. That's Ernest's superpower, is that he can seem so confident that you just trust him. Even when he's off his rocker, you're like, yeah, no. Wow, I just unconsistently capitalized whispers, and then when I wasn't talking about the Ghost Destiny people. I need professional help. How could you? Cool, man. Make such a terrible mistake. Javier says, there's no shipping war, Artsy Vanty. Jolie never pick up on that. As many people, the shipping war arrived with the internet on forums back in the day. The OG is straightforward. And I've finally reached the end. Yay, Javier, it's straightforward. And Tifa is Cloud's one and only. Sure it is, Alyssa. See? Everyone loves Cloud. Dude, if I was Tifa or Aerith, I'd be like, Barrett is right there, okay? That's all I'm saying. Cloud's fine, but like, Barrett, come on. Come on. Anyway, guys, what a stream. Sorry I went crazy. Thanks for going through my PowerPoint with me. Thanks for being unks with me. I wonder what I did it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you for putting up with me. Let me preface things. It's been a great conversation. I don't know. I feel like I crashed out a little bit, but Barrett bakes the cake. He's not gonna bake the cake. Jolie, he's not gonna bake the cake. There will be no scene in the part 3 where Barrett and the ISO guy from Gongaga has an egg beater arm and they make a cake. That's not happening. I'm glad you guys had fun. I had a good time, so I'm glad it's been a good conversation for you guys. Ending just as I'm finishing up at work too. Awesome, man. Okay, wait, you're East Coast, right? So you're getting done at like 2 a.m. I know that you drive home earlier sometimes, but drive safe. Don't be dangerous out there. I don't know if the roads are bad. It's like summertime where we are now. It just like kind of flipped a switch and now it's super warm. Toolman says it's not the Final Fantasy discussion stream if you don't crash out. Every creator does it to some degree. You got overtime tonight. Sweet. That's awesome. Good for you, Alyssa. Now, 1 a.m., if he doesn't bake that cake, the trilogy is a fail. It will be a fail if he bakes a cake. If they take time to hang out with Iso, whatever his name is, and they bake a cake, it's like, no. Jolie wants resolution. She talked about Freytag's pyramid, and she wants like the ending to have resolution, and I agree. There was a comment on Twitter that was like, I think it was a Tifa person. It was like Gamer Tifo is her name or something. She seems cool. And she said something like, was giving feedback about the old people comment, and she said like, just keep making the games, but you could stand to have a happy ending once in a while, Square. Which made me laugh. Oh, good to see you don't have the topics for the stream. I'm afraid if you actually have topics. Yeah, I mean, this was like the topic. I just knew I was going to talk about this the whole time because I was afraid to like say we have to go talk about something else. But yeah, I might get into news and like read some of the interviews and stuff. But I think my strengths lie in just kind of giving you my perspective. I'm still going to toy around with the idea of like doing a call in. I think it'll be fun. If you guys want to, let me know in chat if you guys would like. Would you guys want to just kind of stay, in the chat realm, or would you be cool with calling in and hanging, But if that sounds weird, let me know. Maylene wants cake, Spencer. Oh, you're saying Marlene, yeah. RC Vanty says, when is Jolie making a guest appearance? RC Vanty, she streams with us every Friday now. So if you want to tune in on Fridays, same time, 7:30 Pacific time and 10:30 Eastern time, Jolie comes to the stream. So it sounds like you're in Central time because it's 1 o'clock for you. So yeah, come hang out with us at 9:30, and then me and Jolie are playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake. We stopped at the beginning of Chapter 2. So yeah, tune in on Friday, and we'll pick up where we left off. I will. Oh, Alyssa, stop it! Love the Wednesday night rants and hangouts. Always a good time. Hey, I know you got overtime, so you got paid more, but you got to chill with the supers, okay? Stop doing that. You're so nice. Thank you. Very, very kind. But yeah, this is what I do. I bring the rants. Hopefully we can get the audio not to glitch out on us for one stream without problems. I know that's probably awful to your ears. One of these weeks, Spencer, I will call in and we can talk about what it's like to come into the Final Fantasy community. No, stop. Okay. Okay, you're okay. Okay. Alyssa. Okay. Yes, thank you. That's very kind. I don't know what to say to you because obviously I can't control you. You've made that clear. I will call in and I will talk about, we can talk about what it's like to come into the Final Fantasy community with all the misinformation and confusion on toxic fans. I'm not salty or bitter, but I do think it would be interesting just to bring up, because I've bookmarked so many things on Twitter of like the Final Fantasy VII outrage I got from just, kind of belittling Tifa, but not in like a serious way. If you've watched my streams, you know that I hope you know that I'm not like super serious. But that we can have a good time. And obviously context is just lost when you tweet something out because nobody knows. But because they're going to war every day, there's just tons of stuff. But I don't want to like dunk on Claudius or dunk on Clarith or something. I just wanted to like show you guys like this is how you should not interact with people. You should be able to like critically think for yourself. And so Toolman, maybe we'll have to do that where you can tell me your story about how you joined the community and you got all sorts of confusion. That'll be interesting. Reverse psychology. I'm not trying to do it to make Alyssa. I'm not trying to be like tricky, but yeah. So anyway, we can talk about being decrepit unks in modern gaming. Totally. We're all oldies, or you're old at heart if you hang out with us. But anyway, you guys are great. Too late for not wanting to dunk on people. I'm not. But see, like, do you guys think I'm dunking on people? Because really, like, you can believe what you want. I feel like there are no prerequisites to join our streams. You can hate these games and then like, you know, just see if we say something that you agree with, or you can love these games and, you know, see something whatever, like, or you can interact with us and tell us that if you think we're wrong. I don't care, you know. That's what I'm saying is like, yeah, I dunk on, I don't, my goal is not to like put anyone down. I'm just telling you my perspective. And if I think things are dumb, I'll be like, I think this is like a bad choice from the developers. But if you resonate with it, then good for you, you know? These aren't dunks. You're too nice to dunk. I don't know. Maybe I could. I was a little salty. I was just laughing at the ridiculousness of it all. But now we know that all the shippers are middle-aged 50-year-old men. I'm sorry. It's just funny. Funny to think about. Equal rights, equal fights. Right on. No, I don't. But as Alyssa saying, it doesn't mean someone out there doesn't consider what you say dunking on them. Totally. That's fair, you know. And that's how people interpret it. That's what I want people to learn. That people can say something that you don't agree with, and that doesn't mean that they're dunking on you. You can just chill, you know. Sometimes you just gotta take a step back and realize that not everything is like an attack towards you, even if it's something you disagree with. These streams are like 3 out of 10 compared to what people say on Twitter. Yeah, that's true. Anyone see Respecter for Tifa recently? Bickles, nice. I love Final Fantasy VII Remake or Re-Trilogy, but I hate it at the same time. Justice for Tifa was needed today. Balance the scales. I know, I've painted us as like a total Clarith podcast, so. But Tifa's or Claudi's are welcome. I don't care. You guys are great. All right, I'm going to end the stream. You guys are awesome. My bad, just for Tifa. I agree. She was suspiciously quiet tonight. Very true. But thank you guys for tuning in, for being so kind and nice. It's always fun. We will see you guys on Friday, same time, but you get Jolie, and she is way more entertaining than me. But we're a good team together. Kind of like why we had to get. All right. What did we learn from tonight? Have kids and get married and make sure that they don't play slop. Make sure they play Final Fantasy so we can save the company. Kidding. All right. See you later, guys.
Let me tell you my opinion. Let me give you some advice. It ain't true in every situation, but it's wisdom from the wise. You know patience is a virtue. Yeah, you've heard it all your life. Is it time to just give it a try? It's 3 words in just 1 line. Take your time, get that ring off your finger, girl, 'cause I don't think you're ready quite yet. I'd be willing to bet, for heaven's sake, you just graduated high school, and now it's time to live a little and find yourself yourself I'm not right every time I open up my mouth. But I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test. Cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. It shouldn't come as a surprise. I hope your 18-year-old self can resist when he looks into your eyes. He wants you to be forever. Of course he does, he's 25. Take some time to think of this advice. It's 3 words in just 1 line. Take your time, get that ring off your finger, girl. Cause I don't think you're ready quite yet. I'd be willing to bet, for heaven's sake, you just graduated high school. And here's the time to live a little now. Find yourself, I'm not right every time I open up my mouth. But I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test. Cause I'm willing to bet you're not ready yet. I'm not right every time I open up my mouth. But I guess this time I have some advice I think you should put to the test. Cause I'm willing